Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the football experience. Caleb, it was an amazing weekend for both
It
our
was an
teams.
amazing weekend.
For both our teams.
Yeah, no, it was. It
Yeah.
really was. I'm funnily enough, and I know we're probably going to start on this topic, but I'm funnily enough. I wouldn't say as happy because I have a Liverpool supporter. We are somewhat back in the top four race, but I don't know. I'd be lying if I didn't admit that it put a smile on my face to see Arsenal win the game against Villa in the way that they did. I know I'm anti Arteta for a lot of his antics, but the football you can't argue with, and I thought. I was happy and I was somewhat relieved. I know it can still go in many directions from this point into the rest of the season. But what kind of made me happy as well was it was kind of playing out how we saw it from the pod we did going into that weekend. Where it's like City aren't this juggernaut. City aren't just going to rattle off 14 wins and Arsenal need to come back. And admittedly, it took them until half time before they decided to come back. But that second half, they showed us why they were Arsenal, and I thought, fair play, very well deserved comeback, very important comeback, and then to watch City falter in the manner that they did later at the City ground. I don't know. Everything's just turned, and game in hand could go 5 points clear when that's eventually played. But a lot of football to play. But yeah, I think I don't know. I think it's sort of asserting that we think it's going to go the way we kind of think, that it's going to be a tussle now. Maybe Arsenal can roll away with it again, but I just on the City side, I just think they're just not that City team.
Yeah, like I I think our prediction was right in that like you said, they probably don't have it in them to just go on 14, 15 wins in a row to just
Well,
like
we'll touch on them because they had enough chances in this
yeah,
game. To be
they
fair,
to be fair, like they should have won. But
yeah.
like obviously we'll get to that. But like obviously we'll start with the Arsenal game. And you know what I was thinking? Like I was thinking, man, like we're getting punished by another early kickoff, like the same way that we did against like Everton. Like obviously Everton was like a multitude of things, but like obviously the early kickoff probably like I don't think early kickoff suits anyone because like you remember playing like back in like Resis and stuff, like they would always kick off at was it 1 p.m. and like that would just suck. Like whereas like a 3 p.m.
Same for
kickoff,
everyone though.
I know it's the same for everyone, but like the fact that also you have an early kickoff away as well, so like you have to travel too. So
Yeah,
you have to get up even earlier than what the home team has to get up. So like as the away team, I don't know what the travel time from London to Birmingham is, but let's say it's 3 hours. Like you're probably getting up at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., whereas like the home team's probably getting up at like 9 or 10. Like so they have an extra hour or two, like rest or whatever. But yeah, I was just thinking like, oh man, we're getting punished by another early kickoff, and that first half as well. Like I think the first goal was like a mistake from Zinchenko as well, where he lost possession in the middle of the field, and there was just that sort of that slowness on the ball. Like we weren't moving the ball as quickly as what we used to, which I've been talking about. Like we're not moving the ball as quickly as what we used to. We're not moving like our bodies as well. Like we're not actually moving into space as quickly as we used to play. And then in the second half, like it was a complete turnaround from the way that we were playing. We started moving the ball quicker. We started actually running into space quicker. And I gotta say, Jorginho offers something that I haven't seen being offered this whole season, where he likes to play that ball either into feet when to the player that's running in from wide into the channel between the left, like the left back and the centre back, or the player that's already there, like he plays it directly to them. Like no one was really playing that ball, and that opened up. I think that ball opened up the defense for our first goal, if I'm not mistaken, or or it might have opened up the play to that. Like But yeah,
Yeah, I
like,
think I remember the ball. Yeah.
but yeah, like no one, the whole season, no one seems to have that in their locker. Like Erdegaard doesn't play that ball, Partey doesn't play that ball, Xhaka doesn't.
Well, the position on the park, I think you can only compare him to Partey, really, and I agree that Jorginho's skill set is vastly different. And yeah, he does offer better options in possession of the ball, but obviously you lack a lot the other way. And we'll probably touch on that once you finish your point, I guess.
Yeah, but I gotta say, like I haven't, I haven't seen him get punished off the ball.
So I want to unpack. I want to unpack a lot that you just said. The first half and the second half contrast was stark. Like I said, I thought first half Arsenal again. To your point as well, played, and to the point I made, I think the last pod or 2 pods ago, they played like a team who looked like they were chasing top four. They didn't look like a title challenger. So, and when I say that, top four is still like a pretty good team, but you just have spells of being good, and then it's like watered down by spells of just not being very good, and that's what Arsenal looked like in the first half. And spells, Saka's goal is lovely. I know it comes off a mistake, but they have spells where they're playing out from the back, and they look unbelievable in doing it. The way they play out under pressure is just ridiculous, but they're not doing it as consistently as they did in the first half of the season, basically. But I thought, you talk about the possession, my, not counter to that, but probably my addition to that is, for me, it's so important that Arsenal play high up the pitch. They're not a team who can play in a mid block. They're not a team who can play in a low block. They need to be playing high up the pitch. They need to get their block set up there. They need to counter press. They need to do all of those things higher up the pitch, because that's what they're made to do. I think when you ask that team to defend, you don't want Zinchenko defending as an out-and-out left-back. You don't really even want Ben White defending as an out-and-out right-back. And I think he gets done inside for the second goal, doesn't he, for Coutinho?
Yeah.
So and that all stems from me, and I'm gonna criticize him, but I'm gonna come around to praising him. That all stems to me from Eddie Nketiah. Arsenal, the vast difference of what Arsenal have done this season, and especially in the first half of the season, was they had a player up there who could press high. Because remember, when Arsenal sort of hit that run of form where they were top four chasing last season, it sort of coincided with Eddie Nketiah coming into the team. And remember, they finally put in a good performance against Chelsea at a big team away from home. And they won that game convincingly. And I thought it was all because they had someone who could run up front and who could actually put pressure on it further up the pitch, and they didn't have to drop back into this mid and low block. And in the first half, and what we've seen in recent games where Arsenal have sort of stalled, and I guess this is like hot take, Eddie Nketiah is Arsenal's most important player, but what we've seen in recent games where they've stalled, I don't think he's been applying enough pressure. And then that had me asking questions, is he just not capable? Because we know Gabriel Jesus is an absolute force in terms of applying pressure from the front. He applies pressure on centre-backs, on goalkeepers. He applies pressure on midfielders when he's tracking back. He does it all up there, and he is an absolute whirlwind and a force. Maybe one of the best pressing forwards in the world, if not the best. And now you've downgraded to Eddie Nketiah. It is just like, is he just not capable of doing it? But then, fair play to him in the second half. And yes, you'll like, if I'm a detractor, obviously, I'll point to the missed chances. If they don't end up winning the game, he has a couple of good chances in this game again. And he's just not dry.
He had another header, didn't he?
He had a header, and I think he went through on goal with a one-on-one or something.
Yeah, he did. Yep, he did.
Yeah. So you can point to that. But what he did in the second half, and what helped Arsenal so much, was he applied more pressure, and Arsenal played pretty much exclusively in Aston Villa's half in the second half. And another sort of... You were talking about the Zinchenko mistake for the first goal. The person I pointed out was Saliba for that. And I thought there were 2 moments in the game. They were identical, but one was in the first half, one was in the second half. First half, Saliba, in that moment, the ball goes over the top to Watkins. Watkins doesn't take a great first touch. His first touch is sort of going out towards the corner. And Saliba, in the first half of the season, he sees that and he's just like, I'm a physical specimen. I'm a beast. I'm going to go and press him and force him to the corner flag. He didn't do that, and he just let him walk towards the goal and then just hit a left-footed shot. He affected the game in no way, and I thought that was indicative of Arsenal. They were just a little bit passive in the first half. Second half, exactly the same situation on the opposite side of the pitch. Ball goes out. Saliba is right on him and forces him into the corner. And I believe they counter-attack and win the corner for Zinchenko's goal off of that. Off of him holding up Watkins in the corner and then eventually winning the ball, playing out, and then Arsenal are on their way. So I thought that was, if you wanted to pick out a moment, that was the moment that signified the difference between the two halves. And I think for Arsenal to win this game in the way that they did was well deserved for their second half, because they went back to what Arsenal were in the first half of the season, and fair play to them, full credit. And it was good to see, honestly. It was really good to see, because I guess if you want to go into the narrative as well, I know he winds me up, and I know Arsenal can wind me up. They're kind of like a well-intending friend. You know their intentions are good, but sometimes they just get on your nerves. They just annoy you. But like I can see with Arsenal, the way they play, it's like, all right, this is a good football. This is one of the ways that football should be played, and I think fair play to them. They're like, they got likable guys as well. Saka, Ødegaard, Martinelli, really. Interesting that he starts on the bench as well for this game, obviously. But yeah, they're a likable team. They're a young team. They're a hungry team. So, you know, like, fair play to them, and I'm rather happy for them, because if you contrast it to City are we made the reference in the last pod. They're the Empire, aren't they? They've lowered the mask. They've resorted to the anti-football. They've resorted to the mind games, and it's going to be fascinating to watch, because you need a villain. But in my head, I've built City up as villain, and obviously, it was easy for me to get there, being a Liverpool supporter, having to battle them over the last four or five seasons.
You know what's like interesting? Like you sort of mentioned narratives, and like, you know, like through my head, the narratives sort of kept on shifting throughout the game. Like, do you remember the moment where Nketiah stole the ball off the center back? I can't remember which center back.
Ødegaard's miss.
And I'm like, holy shit! Like, Ødegaard's missed an open chance. So like, your captain firstly gets bullied by Tarkowski for Everton's goal, and then this at 2-2 to not complete the comeback, but like, you know, to make it 3-2, your captain misses that kind of a chance. And like, that moment could have actually just like crushed the entire team. I'm not sure if then who was it? Who was the right winger that came on for Aston Villa? That, remember they had that chance that and then Ramsdale just tipped it onto the bar.
Oh, I think I vaguely remember. I can't remember.
I can't remember if that was before or after the Ødegaard miss. I can't remember the winger's name now. It wasn't McNeil. It was the right winger. But like,
it definitely wasn't McNeil. Is it Everton?
No, why did I think McGuinn?
Yeah, McGinn. Was it maybe Bailey?
Bailey, yeah. So he had that chance, like he just like rifled it, and like I think Ramsdale like got fingertips, just like with fingertips, just like put it onto the bottom of the bar, and then like it just comes out. I can't remember if that was before or after the miss though.
You know what was great about that? On our commentary, the commentator saw it straight away and said, what a great save by Ramsdale. Because, like, I thought it was one of those 50-50s. Like, can you see that that's a save, or is he in the bar? And, like, the commentator was on it. So, I can't remember who it was. Fair play.
Don Hutchinson.
Hey, Don's been in my good books lately. I haven't had to get on him.
Maybe.
He might be right about this Loftus-Cheek business, but... Maybe we'll talk about
maybe you saw your clip about it. But yeah, like, so like that was that. I was like thinking, oh shit, that's gonna be a narrative now. Like the captain, and then how about the narrative then in the 93rd minute where it's like Martinez. Would you say he's probably like the most hated keeper in world football right now?
Oh, it's not a pure hatred because he's a World Cup winner and his antics helped win the World Cup, but definitely the goalkeeper with the most shithousery.
Matthias said like he loves him. Like he's like, oh yeah, like I love him. I'm like, yeah, you only love him when he plays for Argentina, but like you hate him otherwise. He's like, yeah. So like especially when Liverpool play against, because like when you have someone doing that, like you can't like unless you're an Aston Villa supporter or Argentina supporter. Yes, you love it. You love to see it. But you know what? Karma is a bitch. And but you know what? Like that strike from Jorginho, that deserved to be a goal. Like, do you remember that Partey volley? I think it was against Tottenham, where it's like that. It's like that deserves to be a goal. Like if they had half goals, like for like fantastic chances, like that should be like at least given a half goal for like in AFL. You know how you get a point if you miss, or like
interesting concept. 0.5 of a goal for every post hit.
Yeah, like not, but like it would completely ruin football. But like.
I don't know because like when you turn around after a game and you say, "Oh, this team won the game 1-0, but the opposition hit the post 3 times," I'd feel better about it if the win went to the team who hit the post 3 times. Because like, well, you created 3 good chances. This other team, like Dortmund, Chelsea, for example. I thought Chelsea battered Dortmund off the park. I would have been happier for Chelsea to get a point out of that. For hitting the woodwork. I can't remember if they hit it once or twice, but
I can't
just
remember
for a football karma perspective, it's just so much better.
Maybe try it in one of the preseason
preseason,
one of those preseason like mini cups that they do like between 4 or 5 teams. Like maybe try it then. But yeah, like just the way that goal fell, like because didn't it hit the side post and then the crossbar, or did it hit the crossbar then the side post?
I think it was just like it was pretty much top corner, but I think it was just
hit
crossbar.
It hit both of them. I'm pretty sure.
Oh wow!
I'm pretty sure it hit both of them when I saw the replay of it. And then just rebound. It rebounded off his face as well, didn't it? Not the back of his head. So like it rebounds off your face. I'm pretty sure he turned. I'm pretty sure
after it hit him. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Like, where's that gone?
But still, like. It's just fantastic, and then on top of that, he then goes up for a corner kick, and Martinelli pretty much just like walks in or runs in, whatever way you want to look at it, into an open goal, celebrates before he scores it as well. So like,
that wound people up.
Yeah, that wound up. That wound up like every Aston Villa fan. But like, you know what? Considering what Martinez was doing. Fuck them. Like they deserve that shit. And you know what? I think over the last ever since Martinez went to Aston Villa, I feel like there's been a little bit of a rivalry there between Aston Villa and Arsenal. Especially, I think not last season, the season before that. Aston Villa, I think, beat us twice as well, home and away. So and they were being touted as like, oh, the next top 14 because they were getting all this investment. Like they got Buendia, they got Martinez in, they got like all these like, pretty decent players, and they've just faltered ever since.
That was Grealish's last season, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, and like it just feels like there's like this like little sort of like the rivalry that Crystal Palace and Brighton have. Like it's like intercity, like. There shouldn't even be a rivalry there, but there's a rivalry there that's being built up, and yeah, like and obviously like Martinez is adding fuel to that rivalry. Who knows? Maybe once he leaves or retires or whatever, then that rivalry just sort of dwindles away and nothing comes of it. Maybe it's just like a sort of 4 or 5 year rivalry and that's it. But yeah, like all I gotta say is like karma is an absolute bitch.
I was going to say you must have enjoyed. That must be the most satisfying 5 minutes of Arsenal season so far.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, hang on. And then to add on top of all this, like, Martinez narrative, he then gets thrown under the bus by Emery as well. Like, on top of everything, he gets thrown under the bus by Emery.
Man, this World Cup's done strange things to some players.
It's made. I feel like he's always been that sort of player to like, with all the shithousery and stuff like that. So like, I don't think the World Cup has actually affected his behavior because he was doing all that before. It's probably made him more. It's probably lifted at a level.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
But anyway, this isn't about Martinez. This is about
Arsenal.
You guys
and you know what? Like, and the fact that like. City would have been watching that game, or at least they would have been maybe not watching it, but they would have been tracking it like on on
Yeah.
their phones, like a live feed or something like that, live commentary, whatever. Um, and the fact that they got like they were thinking, oh man, like all we need to do now, like we're going to Nottingham Forest, like a win, regardless of that result, a win, and we're still top of the table. And then the fact that in the 93rd minute that news comes in, it's like, oh man, like that. Do you think that would have actually deflated them? The fact that like they're like, oh man, like now we're going to be 2 points clear. So like after being 5 points behind or 8 points behind them prior to the Everton game, to now being equal points and now potentially being 2 points. Is it what would it be? 2 points clear if they won. Yeah, and we drew. Because now that's the difference. Yeah, so from going 8 points behind to 2 points clear. And then all of a sudden, the 93rd minute, that all flips where they need to get a win in order to stay level on points or top of the table. Do you think that would have affected them?
Hard to say. It's hard to say. You'd think half an hour before kickoff. Yeah, you'd think that news probably would have filtered through.
It would have added a little bit of pressure.
Well, I'm just trying to add up the timeline to think if they even got that news, because they would have been tracking the game to a point, but then there would have come a point where they would have just had to start their warm-up preparations. And I imagine under Pep Guardiola, you don't have your phones on you after a certain point in the warm-ups.
Yeah, but surely one of the staff or something would have been like, oh...
No, but under Pep Guardiola, for the same reason, under Pep Guardiola, Pep would be like, don't give them any of the score updates from the other game. So like, if I don't know if the timeline matches up for them to have actually got the news of that. But I think City's football is hurting them more than anything. But in this game, it must also be said. And I don't know, I maybe want to do it a little bit different. Maybe we could touch on how we see going forward if we have anything to add. I don't really have anything to add on how we see it going forward, to be quite honest. This was, in many ways, this weekend was more of an answer than last weekend. That might be because I have a bias, because I want it to end up that way, because that's how I see it ending up. But yeah, for me, I took more sort of answers from this weekend of what these teams really are than I did from their clash against each other, to be quite honest. Well, in terms of the result from that clash, the football, even there was pointing to me to suggest City just aren't the force that they were. But yeah, they had enough chances to win that game, and Haaland, that double chance is unbelievable that he misses it. But they still weren't at their swashbuckling best. And I want to touch on this game probably after we probably do the Liverpool game, because it's not often that I've been able to say that we're a relevant team in recent times, but this result kind of makes us a little bit relevant again. So yeah, I want to touch on that. But yeah, if you have anything to add on how you maybe see it going forward, or just any points to put a bow on the Arsenal side of it, or the title battle between the teams, then go for it. But then yeah, we'll go to Liverpool, Newcastle.
No, I think we can probably touch on that once we go to the City game.
Yeah, I do, and that will transition me to just leave England for a little bit. But yeah, that's how I was going to do it.
You know what? I gotta say, like, you guys actually looked better before Newcastle went down to 10 men.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, which was, and you know what? It's not that strange, because I've played in games where, we've gone down to 10 men, and the levels seem to raise. And
team, if you're down to 10.
Yeah, and I've also seen, and I've also been a part of teams that we have 11 and the other team gets a red, and our level seems to drop. So
yeah.
I've seen that. I've felt it. Like I've seen it on TV. I've played in it as well. Not at that level, obviously, but still, even at the at amateur level or semi-pro, whatever you want to call it, it happens at all levels, essentially.
Yeah, and before you go away from this point and continue, you couple that with the fact that Newcastle are the team that they are, and it's kind of weird, but I kind of want to start by praising the losing team before we go on to Liverpool. But yeah, I thought Newcastle, to your point, they definitely raised their level. They didn't roll over, and
Hmm.
it's a lot of teams could have rolled over because you're already 2-0 down. You've deflated your own home crowd, and then there's a red card to arguably your best player of the season, which now means he's going to miss the League Cup final, which is just a travesty. I mean, just petition to let him play. I mean,
And
man, Nick
just
Pope's
quickly
been
with
so
that,
important for him. Yeah.
is Dubravka like not allowed to play in the League
Yeah, he's
Cup?
cup tied. I think he's cup tied because he was on loan at United for the first
Oh,
half of the season, and now he's back. So,
huh.
you know who is in line to get
Yeah,
that
I know.
place.
I know. Your boy,
Man.
Mr. Flappy Hands.
Yeah, the flappy hands. I think. Anyway, we don't need to reopen the
Look,
2018.
to be far, to be fair, wasn't he? Didn't it come out that he actually got concussed during the game?
Yeah, he might have. But to be fair as well, I don't think the Benzema one should have stood. I've seen instances. Wasn't there the Palace City game earlier this season where Edison, it's exactly the same thing happened. He rolled it out. It had only just left his hand, and I can't remember who intercepted it. It might have been Zaha himself. And then they scored a goal, and it was disallowed because, I don't know, apparently you're not allowed to do that. If you're not allowed to do that, Benzema couldn't do that in the Champions League final. And the way it rolls into the corner is just ridiculous. Oh, man. So annoying. I thought, but definitely the Bale one. He has to do a little bit better. And let's not forget, in between these crappy goals is one of the all-time Champions League final goals by Gareth Bale.
Yeah.
Do you rate that? Which one? I guess the Zidane one's higher just because of the notoriety of it. But for technique, I don't know. The fact that it's such a clear shin from Zidane, I might go with the Bale one. The Bale bicycle is unbelievable.
But you know what? If we're talking about bicycle kicks and techniques, didn't Ronaldo hit a cleaner one against Juve earlier that season?
Oh yeah, no, that is one of the
That
cleanest
was a cleaner one,
bicycles.
yeah.
The Juventus stadium stood up and applauded him. It was that good. But they all fall behind the greatest Champions League goal ever scored, which was in 05 when Kaká turns Stevie G inside out and then plays that unbelievable pass behind Jamie Carragher and the finish from Crespo. Who thinks to finish like that? I have never seen a striker do that finish before or since that moment.
I haven't
And he
seen
did it in
that
the
either.
Champions League final. It was, oh my God, that goal. That goal. Oh, anyway, where were we?
Wait, how do you rate the Messi header against Man United?
It looked very nice.
It
I mean,
looked-
it was...
Because
He kind of overran it and then had to go back on himself a bit, but it was a great header when he got
But also, if you think like he's not challenging against Rio or Vidic because the delivery
of
was
course.
inch perfect.
Yeah.
But like
If people say that, like,
he's still
it was a great looking header.
He did and didn't out jump them, but like the technique to like make it loop back as well. Like
Who crossed it was
Xavi.
It had to be one of Xavi who Iniesta, didn't it?
Yeah, it was
Great
Xavi.
ball.
But that's a great one too. But yeah, I think the Crespo one probably one of the best.
Oh yeah, for me.
Anyway, let's get back to Liverpool Newcastle or Newcastle Liverpool.
Oh yeah, just finish praising Newcastle because the character that team has to not roll over in that situation, and like you kind of thought that they were that kind of team, but then that moment is sort of the testament or the real test of are you going to continue to fight? And they did. Fair play to them. They continued to fight. They know they have a big game coming up. I think this week in the League Cup final, isn't it? This weekend. So
I'll double check that.
Yeah, fair play to Newcastle. Showed great fight. I thought they created good chances as well to get back into the game. And the takeaway on the Liverpool perspective was, if you want a headline for this one, Liverpool are back up and walking. Not quite running, because I think if we finish that game strong, maybe add a couple more goals, like, hey, look at us. Look how good we look now. Because that first 25 minutes, those 2 goals are quite excellent goals, to be fair. I think Eddie Howe said it in his post-match press conference. He said he was disappointed by uncharacteristic mistakes by Newcastle in the first 25 minutes. And I'd go along with that. I don't know what Kieran Trippier's doing, not following the runs, probably on both occasions, to be fair. And Fabian Schär, who I'm not like completely convinced with, but he's had a good season to this point, gets caught out as well. It's kind of between those two. And then obviously Nick Pope, who we've always lamented his ability to come off his line, which he's been doing a lot of this season and very well as well, but gets it all wrong in that moment. Maybe he could have been spared the red card, but it's never seen that way. It's always seen as a red card as soon as a goalkeeper handles outside the box. But he did have a defender level with him, and Salah did still have a lot to do. So I don't know. I know that was an argument after the game, and I get that argument as well. Maybe something needs to be looked at for that.
But
Yeah,
wouldn't it be
Liverpool are the
considered?
first- yeah.
Wouldn't it be considered deliberate handball though? But it looked accidental.
Well, and yeah, it looked accidental. He just misjudged it, but also deliberate handball is not a red card.
I thought
if
it
you
was.
do that in the middle of the pitch, no, if you do that in the middle of the pitch, it's sort of just like, it's just a yellow card. Then you just get on with the game. But yeah, I don't know. But it's never seen that way to the point.
Especially
So
not with
the
a
referee
goalkeeper.
Yeah, exactly. The referee was pretty entitled to give a red, but yeah, just maybe in the future we could look at changing that. But yeah, the first 25 minutes, that looked like a good Liverpool team. Fabinho looked to it, and
Yep.
the main point is even a poor form Virgil van Dijk and a one that's only just returning makes a massive difference to the whole team. It's like it's kind of like the Casemiro effect for United, I'd say. Just the confidence, although Man United, and we'll probably finish on him, but Man United have another guy who's giving them confidence at the moment. But yeah, having Verge back in the team, it just looked like it lifted everyone. And I wasn't 100% sure that was the effect it would have, given how poor Liverpool have been in recent weeks. But hopefully this continues, because yeah, it definitely looked that way in this game.
Yeah, this performance was more akin to Liverpool of the previous seasons, like playing at a high tempo, pressing as like. Remember how like I've described the way they press? It's like they go hunting as a pack of dogs, where like they're hunting in packs of 3 or 4. I saw that again, which I haven't seen that all season. So a lot of what I was seeing, last season, season before, in previous seasons, I saw in this game. I'm like, okay, a Liverpool back, but you know what? Like Matthias said, for instance, like when I spoke to him about it, he's like, a better team would have punished you guys with the amount of chances that you gave to Newcastle. Because Newcastle did have a couple of really good chances, but with Newcastle this season, we know they haven't been that clinical in finishing their chances. They've been an excellent defensive team. So if you play this way and give up these chances against, say, Real Madrid, which we'll get into later on, I'm still worried about you guys.
Oh, definitely. There's no reason to think that everything's all right now at Liverpool. It was nice to see us play well for a change, which was very pleasant, and then obviously get the result. That first 25 minutes was maybe our best football of the season, to be quite honest. Because even when we were stringing things together pre-World Cup, it was sort of in a different system, and you could tell Klopp didn't really love it, and he didn't really want to play that way, but it worked for a little bit. So maybe this could just give us that confidence to go on and do something. I don't know. But to the point, I think Liverpool last season were also giving away a lot of chances, and we could have said that on a number of occasions. A better team, and it's hard. Also, I know Newcastle are going through a slump at the moment, but in Europe this season, I don't think there have been all that many better teams than Newcastle. I know they maybe don't have that prolific striker, but I don't know. We're giving away sort of opportunities to make chances. But Alisson, had to make 2 saves? One off Sam Maximan and one off... I think they might have both been off Sam Maximan. But yeah, I thought Newcastle did really well to get back into the game to the point. And yeah, on another day, if things go well, we've given away enough chances to sort of... maybe let them back into the game more and maybe they could get a draw. I don't know. But we did that a lot last season as well. So if you're comparing us maybe to vintage Liverpool last season, which obviously, let's not forget, were in the hunt for all 4 major trophies until the very end. They did that last season. So if that's the Liverpool I'm looking at, then I'll take it because I know what that team's capable of. It's now a question, how often can they be that Liverpool? Because let's not forget as well, they didn't even show that they could be that Liverpool for the duration of this game. Because, it might have been that psychological factor of Now the opposition have 10 men, they raise. Now we have a man more, we lower. Yeah, it could have been that, but still, they still didn't play well after they went 2-0 up and a man up. So that was disappointing in that fact, and that's why I say they're back up and walking, not running. But yeah, if the first 25 minutes turns into 45, 60 in coming weeks, and then we could do that on a permanent basis, then hey, I mean, the way Newcastle are faltering, particularly in terms of scoring goals, like you say, then they're not infallible. Tottenham are back into the top 4 now, and come on, do we really trust Tottenham? I think Tottenham can finish 4th, but if they do, it's because the other teams have faltered badly, because I don't think Tottenham are a team who deserve to finish 4th, but they might just get it by default. Liverpool haven't shown they deserve to finish 4th. Chelsea, do we even need to touch on Chelsea? My goodness, I don't know what's up there. So, yeah, I mean, yeah,
up there or down there?
Yeah, down there, I guess. 10th place, what's there? The table going into this weekend, I think, had a really interesting anomaly. It was the top 2, Arsenal and City, were above 50 points each, I think. And then the teams below them, I think United and Newcastle were the only other 2 on 40 points. And then everyone below them was 30 to mid-table. And then from mid-table was in the 20s down to the relegation zone, and the relegation zone was in the teens. So it was just interesting how each of those categories of teams were like so clearly divided going into the week.
But you know what else is like nuts? Like we'll talk a little bit about relegation. Like Southampton won, they're still bottom of the table because Bournemouth won, Everton won, and I think that so like those teams that they're all battling against, like, so Everton moved, like, if they lost they would have been stuck on 18 points. The same with Southampton. Yeah, like it's nuts to think about that. Like, it's like you beat Chelsea, which should be like one of the big top 4 teams, especially with the amount of money that they spent, and you're still bottom of the table. Like, how nuts is that?
You know what else is nuts? James Ward-Prowse is just ridiculously good at free kicks.
Is he a goal away from equaling Beckham's record?
It wouldn't surprise. But like, it's just this aura around him. He's reached the point where if there's a free kick on the edge of the box, you're actually putting down money that he's got to score it. I just think it's a better bet that he scores from a free kick there than that he doesn't. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's I think he's either a goal away or from equaling or from outdoing Beckham's record. I think that's what they were saying over the weekend. But yeah, like, it's insane. Like, but like, is that all he really has in his game though? Because like, if he had more to his game,
he's a good player. Like, he's not unbelievable, but I think he's a good footballer.
All right, what team would take him? Would a top 6 team take him, or is he more of a mid-table team?
I think Tottenham could probably use a James Ward-Prowse. I think he'd be all right for a Tottenham.
You know what? I think I've seen him play a little bit. Like, I think he probably could suit Tottenham. Yeah.
I think Tottenham would be his best chance to get regular game time as well.
What about Newcastle?
Newcastle, yeah, I do think Newcastle will favour a lower age profile, but I think he could be a good one as well. But I think, and as well, maybe not as a starter, but maybe as a starter this season. But United, I don't think he's much of a downgrade on Eriksen. There are parts of his game that are a bit of a downgrade. I think Eriksen's maybe not a better passer, but he sees the passes. His vision's a little bit better than James Ward-Prowse. But I think technically James Ward-Prowse can do what Eriksen does, and he can run. He's a bit more robust than Eriksen, so even a United next to Casemiro, he'd be all right at. But to the point, he might be a little bit old for that move now.
I don't know. Maybe he gets, like, especially if Southampton get relegated, he might get a move.
And also his importance to Southampton means he probably wouldn't be cheap. But yeah, if they get relegated, I think you'd have to look at moving him on.
Yeah. Anything else you have to mention regarding either the Liverpool game or any other games around the league or the table itself? Dude, Fulham they're 6th. They're 4 points off 4th.
Yeah, they're a good team, and I
And
think
and also United are now 3 points away from City.
yeah, I know that. I know that one because now your favorite topic's got to start popping back up.
Yeah, it's gonna
Are
start popping
United
back up.
title challenges?
And you know what though? Like, okay, so they've those three teams have all played each other twice, so they can't take any more points. Actually, well, Arsenal and City haven't, but like United have played those two, like City and Arsenal twice, so
Yeah.
they can't take any more points off them, or lose any more points to them. So for United, they're sort of in a good position now where they're like, well, all we need to do is not fuck up. Like, if we like top three, top four, I'd say it's a shoe in for them. Like I think if they don't get top four after like where they are right now, that's gonna be a massive disappointment, and it's gonna be a massive bottle as well. But like,
Putting that out there.
I'm putting it out there because like, look, they're on 49 points. Like, and look at all the teams below them. They're not playing as consistently as what United have. Like, United found some really good form and they're playing pretty consistently. But like, yeah, like if they don't get top four, it's a massive bottle.
Before we go on to United, we'll do a little bit of United. We'll do there's not much to touch on Chelsea really, but they are. Look, it's weird. Why aren't we touching on Chelsea? Because they are, for all intents and purposes, in an absolute crisis at the moment. They just lost at home to Southampton. That's a ridiculous result. That's really bad. That's a cry for help. But I think we just all feel it's inevitable that Potter will be given time. The whole project will be given time to come together. And to be fair as well, the football until this game they were uninspiring at best. But the football before this point had at least glimpses and maybe a bit more. I thought the overall performance at Dortmund was pretty good. Yeah, they got a little bit bombarded in the first 15 minutes, but you're going to Dortmund. I mean, that's one of the stadiums of European football where if that's going to happen, it'll happen there in front of the yellow wall. So, and then the rest of the game they responded well. So yeah, I think on that point, I don't think it's fair to have the Potter out discussions, but he does need to start sort of putting something into the fans to help them sort of believe in him a bit more. I don't know. Chelsea have a weird feel.
You know what? Like, so here's the thing. If it was Abramovich would have got rid of him.
Of course.
100%. But now, okay, you know what? Everything that's happened with Arsenal, it's given this sort of leniency to giving managers time and like building a project. So
I also think your first point about comparing it straight away to Abramovich is the perfect one because I don't think Bowley wants to be seen. He wants to do things differently, obviously.
Yeah, 100%.
So this is part of it.
But then also to add on to that, like Abramovich wouldn't. He's not for building long-term projects, but like Bowley, he has a different. He might have a different mindset. He might not. But this season, considering Potter came in just before the World Cup, then you have a month off, and like half your team has left, and then you buy like 4 or 5 players in January. Like if you really look at it, he hasn't had that much time to actually work with this team. So, and if you look at Arteta, for instance, I think he came in around November, December, if I'm not mistaken. So he came in around halfway through the season, a little bit before halfway, I think. They finished 8th that season. So, yeah, like I think give him to the end of the season, and if they don't start off next season, considering they have a much stronger team than what Arsenal had in Arteta's like first full season when he had a pre-season with that team. To be fair, though, also Arteta did win an FA Cup, so that I guess extended his lifespan, I guess, if you want to consider it. But yeah, like, and yeah, they've spent a fuck ton as well in comparison to what Arsenal spent. So yeah, give him to the end of this season. If they don't start off next season by at least, they don't necessarily have to like start off winning like 10 games in a row, but if they can at least show that
in a
they're
title challenge, you'd think title challenge, third, fourth place, something like that.
no.
They'd want to be a
What I'm thinking though is they need to show that they're at least playing a style, and it needs to come together because right now there probably isn't any sort of identity to the team just yet. Whereas with Arsenal, for instance, I started seeing that identity pretty early on, and like you'd see it in glimpses, and you were just waiting for it to finally come together, like with an extra signing or two. Like I kept mentioning, especially last season, I kept mentioning it. Like I can see what's happening and see what's being built, but we're just lacking a couple of players. And yeah, this season, like we got Zinchenko and Jesus. And now it seems like it's all clicked, and Saliba's come in as well, and it seems like it's all just clicked. Maybe something like that will be similar for Chelsea, where like they have all this personnel, and for instance against Dortmund, they played really well, but they just need it all to like come together for it all to click. The one thing that I'm sort of worried about is João Felix. It's like you brought him in on loan. Do you intend? There was no option. It wasn't loan with an option to buy. It was just a straight loan. So like, does that mean are you gonna actually make a bid for him? Because like, what's the point of sort of playing him and integrating him into the team as a loan player, unless they're actually gonna go for him this summer? If you get what you get where I'm coming from. Yeah, because like let's say he forms this amazing partnership with Zinchenko and Havertz and Fernandes.
I'm sure if that's what happens, then they can make the permanent transfer.
Yeah, like they could like for instance, Arsenal did that with Ødegaard. Like he came in on loan, and then they made it permanent, and there was no option to buy. But yeah, like it would sort of be, unless they actually intend to buy him. I sort of see it as pointless because like he like you create all this like good chemistry between those players, and then you bring in some other striker or something.
Yeah, no, the point is if he plays well, then they will look to buy him. I think. I don't think there's much doubt about that, and he is playing pretty well, but he's not finishing chances at the moment. But I don't know, a lot to unpack there. I think in comparing what's happening at Chelsea to other managers, the one I'd look at straight away is Tuchel. And I know that was under Abramovich, but he came in and I wouldn't say got lucky. He is a very good manager, but his identity, footballing-wise, on this team, I think is pretty much the same as what Graham Potter is doing. I look at Chelsea play under Potter and I look at play under Tuchel, and I think they're very stylistically the same teams, quite cautious, I guess you could say, but they can be cautious with the ball. They can be cautious with their structures. But they weren't a free-flowing goal-scoring team under Tuchel, I don't think, at any point. But they did have players playing with confidence of being European champions. And they did have, you'd probably say, a better defensive solidity, although Chelsea have lost all these games quite narrowly. I can't remember the last time they got a real sort of pasting. I guess maybe that was Brighton away. I don't know, maybe they've suffered another one in the middle there, But yeah, I think, even City you point back to, they only lost that game 1-0. So like in terms of, I don't know, like Potter being so criticised by the Chelsea fans now, but Tuchel being so revered is literally a goal difference in each of these games, and that's what happens. And then let's not forget, Chelsea, for me, still have a chance of winning the Champions League, to be quite honest, given how open it is. I think it was kind of the same when Tuchel won it, So yeah, I think your clicking point is right. I think if it could click at some point this season, there might be something to salvage. Obviously, they have a do or die home tie against Dortmund, and the problem is the fans aren't on side with what they've seen so far. So I think you see it at Stamford Bridge on the weekend. It's not renowned for being the loudest stadium, but it didn't. I don't know. They were just never really behind the team. The whole place, the whole vibe feels a bit weird, and they go and lose 1-0 to Southampton. So signs are not good, but yeah, football identity I'm not worried about. Character identity I am, and that's the thing I might worry about in terms of what Potter can achieve, because can he somehow changed this narrative around him that he's too much of a nice guy, he's too methodical, he's too he's just too much about thoughts, not enough about feelings, because there's no doubt that Tuchel inserted that aspect of the sort of passion aspect to the crowd and to the team. So can Potter do that? That's the question marks I have at the moment. But football wise, I think it's fine. I think it needs to be a bit better. There's no doubt about that in terms of results. But I think it's fine because, to your point, it's the first time he's really we've seen 3 games in a row where we can pretty much predict what the Chelsea team sheet will read. So that at least that's a positive sign. Now they need to turn these results around. Dortmund could be a catalyst for that. I think that's a very winnable tie. So I'm not buying into all this doom and gloom, but it's definitely odd because results wise, Chelsea are in an absolute crisis at the moment, and they are really terrible. But if we flip it to, well, I guess we could wrap a bow on the top 4 thing because we just said we don't expect United to be in a top 4 race, and they shouldn't be because I think they're clearly so far been the third best team, and on form they might be the best team in the Premier League at the moment. So but if we wrap a bow on the top 4, I thought just to wrap a bow on Newcastle, Liverpool, I thought that game felt a bit like City Arsenal the week before, but just a lower stakes version. Because I think it was a psychological game. It was billed as a psychological game. Newcastle, who obviously are in the Arsenal position, not in great form at the moment, not getting the results, not being as free-flowing, I guess, as they once were. Because let's not forget, this team has the 3rd best goal difference, I think, in the league, or they had at least going into that game. So they were at some points of the season free-flowing and scoring goals. But yeah, they go into that game like that, and obviously Liverpool, we don't need to talk about their struggles, but they are still Liverpool. They still have the name, and they still, if you went into the season at the start, you would have thought that they would be the team who are easily above Newcastle. So there's still that psychological aspect. And now, obviously, Liverpool having won this game, I think just pulls them straight back into that race for top 4. But obviously, like we said, it's about seeing it in the weeks to come.
You know what? Newcastle's only 2 losses were against Liverpool as well.
Oh yeah, great point. That is the interesting stat. Well, we are the unbeaten killers. We will kill your unbeaten record. If you're unbeaten at home, we'll come there. We'll do you in. If you're unbeaten in the whole season, we're gonna do you in. Don't come to us with an unbeaten record. But yeah, and I think maybe just to finish on the before we go back to City, that's what I wanted to say. But to finish on United, I hate to bring it up to you again, but ever since we had Rashford v Martinelli, the man is absolutely on fire. He's like, and I don't know, the last couple of weeks he is playing as an out-and-out striker, isn't he? I know he's it's because of this Ten Hag sort of diamond up front. Everyone in that 4 is very fluent, except you probably wouldn't see Bruno Fernandes play as a striker, but who knows? Maybe he'll use him as one day. But Wout Weghorst can play any of those 4 roles. Rashford goes across any of them. Sancho goes across any of them. Anthony, when he plays, can go across any of them pretty much. So if Ten Hag wants to make it's not so much like a tactical shift. It's just a shift of personnel. I guess you'll call it tactical, but it's more a matchup shift. If he wants to do that, then he can do that pretty much at any point, which is really valuable for him. And yeah, back to Rashford. I think 10 goals in his last 10 starts ever since the World Cup. I don't know. Yeah, I think if he continues this form to the end of the season and United linger around the title challenge, I don't expect him to get fully back into it. But if they can stay close to the top 2, comfortably finish top 4, then yeah, he'll probably have a world-class tag on him by the end of the season because, man, the difference in Rashford, when he went through in the first half, I expected him to score. I've never been in that position with Marcus Rashford before. Every time I see him go through on goal, I don't expect him to score. Before this point, before what he has become in recent months, you would say now, I didn't trust his finishing. But now, we saw the finish at the Nou Camp, which was unbelievable. This finish, you expect a good striker to score, and he scores it. And that is the difference in Marcus Rashford for me this season. And in this run of form, he just looks like a dependable goal scorer who gives the team confidence. And if you do that for the best part of a whole season and lead your club to good things, then you deserve a world-class tag, I think.
What do you think has changed with him? Like, is it just that there's actually a coach now that knows what he's doing and knows how to improve players? Whereas, like, before, it's weird because Ollie was a striker himself, so like you would expect him to be able to impart. I know he wasn't a world class striker, and like Ten Hag wasn't a world class player. I don't even know who's playing history, but like I don't. He probably was in the Mourinho mold where like he probably played like second division or something. But like, yeah, like how did Rashford not improve under Ollie, who was a striker and he was a United striker? And then obviously Ranić, he was just a caretaker coach. You can't really call anything there. Like the whole team was down on morale. So like, what do you think caused the shift? Southgate maybe even, but like but the thing is with Southgate, like for him to actually get called up to be under Southgate, he would have had to, like, he was obviously doing well under Ten Hag. So like Ten Hag caused the shift. But like, would Southgate maybe have said to him, "Hey, look, there's a World Cup coming up. If you want to get back into this team, you need to start improving your form, scoring goals." Do you think maybe even that had a bit of an influence on it?
It might have. The timeline definitely adds up. But as well, he's been on fire since the World Cup, and that's his real purple patch. So yeah, you can't say it's just because of that. I think I can't speak for why Rashford has made the improvement he has personally. But I maybe could look into the environment that he's playing in and say, this is the most settled environment that he's played in his probably his whole career, because you think he comes through, I think, under Van Gaal when he gets into the first team. Obviously, Van Gaal's an older manager. You don't expect him to build a dynasty at a club for the long term. Mourinho comes in, and we know how tumultuous the time is under Mourinho. And then since then, you've had Ollie and you've had Ranić, and Ollie was never an elite manager. He never was going to be. It was a stupid hire at the time that they went through with, and they paid for it. But he obviously a nice guy and all from the perception. And then Ranić, of course, was a shit show. There was nothing ever going to happen there. And then you couple that with Ronaldo being at the club, and you can see how terrible. And I think a lot of new age players are quite sensitive. Like, and that doesn't have to be a bad word, but they are. They're more aware from a younger age of the environment that they're playing in, so they're more sensitive to it. And him being in an unsettled environment pretty much his whole career, I don't think has helped him one bit. And that's an easy statement, of course. But now you look at it, and particularly in terms of, there's no doubt the football they're playing has a clear structure. It has a clear identity to it with Ten Hag. And we know who the boss is. It's Ten Hag. He just won the battle with the most famous player of the last 15 years, or one of them. And he showed to the rest of the squad, look, I'm the one who's going to be here for the long haul. So we're just all going to have to get on this ship together and go in the same direction. So that coupled with, I think anytime you look at the environment United are playing in, I think you have to mention Casemiro as well. I know he doesn't play in this game, and to the point in this game, United did not look good for the first half, basically. They were getting cut open by Leicester. But then Rashford's goal kind of eases everyone, and then they go on from there and make it look more comfortable. But without Casemiro, they still are a hairy proposition, Manchester United. They're by no means assured. But when he comes straight back into the team, everyone's assured again. And David De Gea was sensational in this game, and he had to be because Casemiro wasn't there. It was the worst performance I'd seen Lissandro Martinez give in a half. In that first half, he was a little bit all over the place. But yeah, on the Rashford point, I think if I'm going to speak to anything, the thing I'd look at is the environment. And it just looks like a much more settled Manchester United, and he's absolutely flourishing in it. So fair play to him.
Yeah, like, good on him, and he does good stuff off the pitch as well. Like, I think he has that what is it, like school lunches for kids or something program?
Yeah.
So like, if you can find a balance between playing well and doing that stuff off the pitch, full credit to you. So you can't do one at the expense of the other, I guess. Which it seemed like that was the way, like when, last year, the year before, and whatnot.
That's how I always consoled myself with how much he was getting paid. by
that
saying,
he was
well,
giving
at
back
least,
to the community.
yeah, at least he's a conscientious guy and he's giving back, but like he's not earning this through his football. But now
Yeah.
he is definitely earning that wage through his football.
So,
But yeah,
do you know how long does he have left on his contract? Do you does United then, and also the fact that United introduced that the Ronaldo clause where it doesn't go over, was it over 200,000 a week or 250? And
did they actually introduce that?
I
I thought Ten Hag was just talking about that because Rashford's already on 250 a week. So
yeah, but I think it's like moving forward from now. So does that mean that his wage actually gets reduced?
No, I'll be very surprised if they actually do that. They won't be able to compete with clubs if.
But I'm pretty sure his contract is coming up to an end, isn't it? Because like PSG were in for him in the summer. So does he have a year or two left?
I was going to say that. I think there's even been Arsenal rumours, which is crazy to think. But,
that was last year, I think.
Or was it the other? And Saka's contract isn't tied up either, is it? Well, we're talking.
I don't think. Contract. No, not yet. And Saliba's as well.
They're two big ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I've forgotten what we were talking about, but I'm happy to go across Manchester and finish up the Premier League on City.
Yeah,
City will give me a nice segue to the rest of Europe. But I don't know. What were your thoughts? Did you watch this match?
I watched some of it. I didn't watch all of it.
Fair. It was uninspiring, and I think if I want to start on maybe a little bit of praise for City, Ruben Diaz is back in the side, and Ruben Diaz is a really good defender. So I'm instantly, whenever I see him as the central centre back, I'm filled with more assuredness. And I guess that kind of leads into the point of the tactical sort of thing that I wanted to address here, and it leads to another club in Europe as well. But all right, fair enough. You've got Ruben Diaz. He is arguably the best centre-back in the world. So if you are going to play with an out-and-out back three, having him at the heart of it somewhat makes sense. I can somewhat forgive you a little bit of that. And also, you couple that with the fact that I also have Rodri as a holding midfielder. He's widely regarded as one of the best in the world. I have a supremely intelligent Bernardo Silva playing next to him. I'm meant to have a great goalkeeper in Edison playing behind him, although I don't think Edison's been that guy for a couple of seasons, I must say. His distribution hasn't been all that great this season, but it's always pretty much the best in the world. But the goalkeeping itself, I don't think has been up to standard for a couple of seasons, to be quite honest. But yeah, all right, fair enough. These players, at least on reputation, they're meant to be that good. So, okay, and Kyle Walker as well. He's one of the best defensive right backs in the world. Like, you're not meant to be able to get past him. Okay, I look at that, it's like, all right, an out-and-out back three. You can push more men forward, trust your defenders to do your defensive work. All right, fair enough. I kind of get that, but I don't know. The way that City are playing, the way that Pep hasn't seen that Rodri is not at his best, Edison's not at his best, Ruben Diaz has only been back for 2 games, so do we even know that he's at his best? Kyle Walker certainly hasn't been at his best. Why are you being so arrogant? So why are you trying to rely on a gimmick with a world-class team like Manchester City? Why do you have to play gimmicky football? Can't you just play like a 4-2-3-1? Can't you just play a 4-4-2? Can't you just keep it simple when your team is struggling and get everyone back to basics, get everyone grounded, and then we'll go again? Because player for player, we still have one of the best teams in Europe. Now, unfortunately, because if I'm Pep Guardiola, my egos clash with João Cancelo's ego. Now we don't have one of the best fullbacks in the world. Well, it's silly. Now you've got a hole in your team and you're trying to fill it with Bernardo Silva. But it still doesn't need to be gimmicky. I mean, you could still put Sergio Gomez there. I guess you could put Rico Lewis there.
Your boy.
I mean, but like, I don't. It is a big hole actually, and they're gonna have to fill that in the summer. But that comes down to the manager again. So I don't know. I'm very disappointed in seeing them play this gimmicky way when they're meant to be Manchester City. They're meant to be the team who are preeminent. They're always there. They're gonna be winning the title pretty much every year, and if they don't, they're coming damn close. And it might turn out that way, but the football in recent weeks has been just super disappointing, and I'd be interested to get your take on what you see from City Or any additions you have to talk about? Because I know we've talked about City a lot in recent weeks as well.
I haven't watched them like that intently, but like from what I have seen of them, they just seem slower and a little bit sloppier. Like especially like with their passing and their distribution, and like they they seem to be taking one too many touches. They're not playing in one or two touch. They're playing more in like three or four touch. So it's
Do you
slowed.
have
It's
any?
slowed down
Do you
the
have any
game.
suggestions for why?
They
I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sorry.
nah like I don't want to blame it on Haaland because like he's been there for half a season now, and like before the World Cup they were finding him and like they were giving him the ball, but like now it seems like they're not trusting him maybe. So like instead of just giving it to him in one or in after your first touch or your second touch, they're sort of hanging on to the ball, and then Haaland's already made his run, so it's too late to deliver him the ball. So they try to play it out wide or back into the center if it's already out wide. So yeah, like there's a disconnect there, it seems.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. And the Haaland discussion, I guess, is a bit played out, but it is interesting. Maybe Pep is compensating his tactics for Haaland, because the hold up and the link up play is quite poor. I mean, there's no doubt Aguero became better at the link up play under Pep, but you could tell from his skill set that was always going to be in there, that he was going to be able to link up with players. I think he was already doing it before Pep, to be quite honest, but maybe not to the tactical level that he was when they went on that Centurion season in particular, the way he'd drop in and let De Bruyne run beyond him and let those midfielders run it. That's good City. This is bad City. It's a bit stale. It's a bit static. The runners aren't there. De Bruyne had a terrible game against Forest. Really, really bad. But yeah, I don't know. I think for me it's tactical, and whether that's down to Haaland, that can be argued. But I still think they could try and play in a more simplified way because they have such good players. I don't think they need to rely on doing this crazy thing where we're not going to play with a left back and Bernardo Silva will just drop in when he sees fit. I just think that's too liberal for all the players. There's not enough discipline there. There's not enough simplicity, and that could go into the fact that why they're taking too many touches. Maybe they're not regimented in their positions enough, so the options don't just appear as soon as they have the ball. They've got to get their well. You'd expect great players to have their heads up and already know their options, but it's not instinctive. It's not like I get the ball, I know where my options are straight away. Just takes me a split second longer, and that's all it takes at the elite level to have to take another touch on the ball. So, but it does lead me to another team. I'm interested to see. Can you guess which team I'm going to point out for who I'm also disappointed in their gimmicky play from around Europe?
From around Europe.
Yeah. If I need to bring in the key word again, I will. Do you want the key word?
Go on.
Arrogant.
PSG.
Oh no! But I guess PSG
Bayern.
we'll talk about because they played in the game of the weekend, but it's Bayern and that was the segue. It was the segue from City into Bayern, and then Bayern would lead to PSG, which would be fun. But yeah, that's the other one because you look at Bayern, and they arguably have a better starting 11 than City, apart from up front, obviously. And they too are relying on this gimmick, as we saw at PSG, of playing three out-and-out centre-backs or three out-and-out defenders, and the rest of the team sort of plays fluid. Everyone gets forward, everyone progresses. It's like a 3-1-6 almost. And to be fair, Lazio used to do it under Simone Inzaghi, and they were pretty good at it. So you'd expect Bayern to still be good at this, and they still should be good at this, but it's impatient, and it's a bit gimmicky, and I don't know, the balance is all wrong. And these are managers in Pep and probably Nagelsmann who kind of want to... Well, we know Pep wants to imprint or impress his own styles and a new way of playing, because we've already touched on that. Maybe this is Pep trying to invent the new way, and you'd expect Nagelsmann to monitor that as well, and himself want to put in a new a new way of playing that's followed by the greater masses across Europe. But I don't like it. I think this has gone too far. I think the balance is completely wrong. And I want to pose a question to you. Do you think these managers are trying to play that way? A, for the reason that I just mentioned, because they want to be innovators. But do you think maybe the personnel available worldwide has sort of led them to this way? Because I think if you look at the best player, well, not the best players in the world, but if you, for example, if you did this exercise, you tried to do the first, second, and third teams, and you came up with your shortlist. I would say your midfielders and your strikers, the shortlist on those two areas of the pitch would be a lot more than your shortlist of defenders. So is there a bit of a defender shortage by the way that players have been brought up through academies, the way that players have somewhat been unified in how to play, which I think is to the detriment of football. We're not seeing those sort of hard-nosed characters as much get through the system and play as centre-backs as much as we're seeing these technically gifted players sort of play there, and we're starting to... Fullbacks are becoming more influential in creating rather than defending. Do you think all of that is more the reason why these guys have said, you know what, we want to address the balance and now we want to play with only 4 players who have real defensive responsibility and the rest can get forward, rather than probably for the last, I don't know, however many years, 20 or so, you'd probably go a balance of 5 and 5. So yeah, I'm interested to get your viewpoint on why maybe you think we're seeing so much of... I think defensive play is just, it's nowhere near as good as it has been in the past. And I'm interested to see whether you think that's because the mentality has shifted or whether you think we just don't have that many good defenders anymore. And is it a good thing or a bad thing as well?
I can't remember which pundit said it, but they said that it seems that now defenders are learning to, play out from the back first and like do all this stuff first rather than learn how to defend first. So defending for them in their education is secondary. And that's why you're not seeing probably these great defenders like I know Rio, for instance, Rio was maybe in that class of one of the first, towards that sort of first, he was the more ball playing centre back out of like him and Vidic. But you look at players like, for instance, like Jaap Stam, Nesta, Vidic, Tony Adams, Keogh, and all these guys, like they're all hard-nosed defenders. Terry as well. They're all like hard-nosed defenders, and like they didn't try to be fancy on the ball and play out from the back. Whereas now it's like that's a requirement. You need to know how to play out from the back. So it's probably more towards that, like that. The education then, maybe the academies are then putting a focus on that instead of like, those basics, So I'd say that's the bigger influence rather than, and then that's probably like leading into then these coaches at the. It's maybe it's like also the chicken and the egg argument. It's like, are these coaches that are trying to innovate football? Are they causing these academies to teach ball playing out from the back first? Or is it that these academies are teaching ball playing out from the back first and then they're giving them these players that don't really know how to defend? So it's like, okay, we need to try and make the most of this in a different way.
And also, okay, there's a couple of points. The first one is on the footballing aspect. When you couple the fact that, and I think you said it well, that from the outside looking in, it looks like now defenders, their initial thought isn't about defending, and I thought you made that point well. You couple that with the fact that now every player's first thought is attacking. Now attacking can come in different ways, but being proactive, being good on the ball, being able to play. Every player now, nearly every player on the pitch has learned not only to play out of the back, but to be press resistant, to be able to beat a man one-on-one. Now you've got fullbacks who can do that aptly. Centre-backs can even do that aptly at times. They drive the ball past players. So when you couple the fact with the defensive mentality isn't instilled in as many players anymore, and they're all offensively even better, I think if you want to draw a parallel, you'd look straight to the NBA. So anyone who follows the NBA will know, especially in recent seasons, obviously a 3-point revolution. obviously, and now scoring is easily in the hundreds for each team. Like a team who keeps an opposition to around 100 points is a good defensive team, which never would have been the case back in the day. But all five players now on the court for good teams are all have offensive weapons and they can all do good things offensively. So now it's harder to defend and you don't have a defensive mentality. I think we're starting to see that sort of seep into the game. And I struggle with it because objectively my mind says players are comfortably across the board, very comfortably. Actually, no, I'll finish this. They're very comfortably better players now, objectively. Like they can do more things. They're more weaponized, so to say. They have more weapons in their arsenal. Like he can beat a man, he can resist the press, he can play this sort of splitting pass between midfield and defensive lines. Like nearly every player on the pitch can do that. But now that's your focus as well. So I don't know. It's objectively they're better, but did I just prefer watching a hard-nosed defender just do their role in the team? I think I did. I think I preferred it when an 11 was made up of different characters with different roles, different responsibilities, who all did different things, and it was the manager's job to blend and mesh that all together and make it work for the greater... Yeah, blesh. I mixed them up, put them both in. But I think I preferred watching that when you could see someone like a Tony Adams or a player who was able, like a Jamie Vardy even, a player who was able to play lower league football, get exposure to the real world, grow their own character and their own personality outside of academies, and bring that to an elite team. I always prefer watching that, to be quite honest. And I sound like maybe I'm acting like a guy who's 30 years old, and I'm sounding a bit like a curmudgeon, but I don't know. It's all a bit washed. What's the word I'm looking for? It's just all a bit same out of the academy system. And admittedly, it produces fantastic. Yeah, it produces fantastic football at times, but it just gets a bit boring at times as well. And
monotone.
I don't know. Yeah, a bit monotoned, and so managers like Pep and Nagelsmann, I don't want to say they think they're innovating the game, because these guys are more successful than I could dream of being, to be quite honest. But I don't like where they're trying to take the game. I would rather see them sort of say, you know what, there's a deficiency in the game of now. Players like that, players who can defend unbelievably well. And if I had to say, I think there'll be a regression back, because everything goes in swings and roundabouts. So we're going through this phase now where we think weaponizing all these players, all these guys coming from academies with an offensive arsenal, is the best way forward. I think someone's going to show us, because it's been a while since, I guess, Atletico were the last great exponents of this style of football. And maybe the style itself evolves in terms of how it's defensive or how it's played in a way that exposes a deficiency. Maybe it's physical. Maybe it's Newcastle this season, because what I was thinking when they were playing Liverpool, just how massive a team they are. They're huge, the Newcastle team, all around the park. So maybe it's that physical style that starts to expose these technicians who come through academies. Maybe that's something Newcastle are looking at, actually, and maybe that's why they're doing so well. So, yeah, I sort of think that this sort of evolution is saturated to a point where I don't think Nagelsmann and Pep are on the right track in terms of what they're trying to do, actually. And I think they'd be far more suited to, if you have the best players on the pitch, just keep it simple, don't go gimmicky. And then if you want to innovate, I think there's better ways of going about it, but I can't, I don't know. There was just an interesting philosophical footballing discussion that came from watching particularly those two teams play on the weekend.
But do you think then that's also influenced by Pep? Because didn't Pep have that influence on German football?
You mean...
To an extent.
How? Yeah.
Because Pep obviously came, he was there for 3 years in Germany, and then they started to shift towards that sort of way, especially Bayern, possibly.
I always thought Pep's Look, it's hard to say because off the top of my head, I actually remember a game. I think they beat Roma 7-0 at the Olympico in the Champions League, and they played a 3-1-6 basically in that game. But they did have Manuel Neuer in goal. They did have Jerome Boateng in defence. I believe they might have had a prime Mats Hummels in defence. They had Xabi Alonso screening those three. They had David Alaba on the left-hand side. That's the point. If you've got personnel like that, then go for it. That's fine. And I guess Pep will tell you he does have personnel like that. I don't think that Nagelsmann can argue that he has personnel like that. Jan Sommer's not on that level. Upamecano, who gets sent off against Mönchengladbach and early in the game, and they lose that game 3-2, and this is why we're having this discussion, because I thought they got their footballing karma for the way they tried to play in that game against Mönchengladbach. And now they're level, I think, level at the top with Union and Dortmund, who are all on 43 points. Union couldn't beat last place Schalke. Union looked like... The little point I want to make on Union, we'll do a little Bundesliga thing before I round it back to... well, I guess, I was saying the Bayern, I don't think they have the personnel to play this style, but back then they could. And to answer your question before we do the wrap, I thought for the most part that Bayern team were very solid at the back. I thought they were disciplined as well. I thought Pep's idea of inverting the fullbacks was actually a way of making them more solid. And that's the thing. This is kind of out of character for Pep, because Pep for me is quite a defensive coach. He doesn't do it in the traditional way, but the way he holds the ball and the way he likes his team to possess the ball is all about having control. And now. And I keep evolving this discussion. This is like a think exercise, a thought exercise. But I think the most recent deficiency that teams have been trying to exploit has been the transitional game. Because in that game, if you could just encourage your players to work harder than the opposition in those moments where the ball is in dispute, then you have an inherent advantage straight away. So I think that's why the intensity of football, I think, in recent seasons has maybe even raised up a notch from what we've seen maybe in the early 2010s. I think people like Klopp, people like Pep, their thoughts on all of this stuff has sort of evolved it. Now, we had a bit of a throwback with Real Madrid winning the Champions League last season, because I don't think they play in that style at all. So it means that other styles can still win the Champions League. But yeah, I think in recent times that deficiency has been transition that they try to exploit. And now the transitional game is so well talked about, counter-pressing, all of these subjects are so well talked about, so well thought about. Nearly every team can play in that way. And one thing you can get any team in the world to do is run. If you could get them fit, if you could get them athletic, and these are professional footballers, so they should be looking to do that, you can get them to run. So all of a sudden, that transitional game, you can have teams who are mid-table and bottom of the table. They could outwork you on any given afternoon if you're City or if you're Bayern in that transitional game. So, look, it's not a new thing. It's just, I think, something that's been emphasized a lot in recent years. So now the game's gone that way, and I guess maybe the point is maybe Pep and maybe Nagelsmann are trying to preempt that, get more men up the field, trust their defenders more to defend so that they can apply more pressure in the transitional games further up the pitch in the mid-block, wherever it may be. But yeah, I just don't think it looks defensively solid. It just doesn't look right, the balance. It could be because of personnel, but to the point, if you're a coach, if you're an elite coach, and you're not recognizing that your personnel's not good enough to carry that out, then you need to change it. And these guys, for me, need to change it. We've had enough evidence from City and Bayern this season that is not solid enough, and they need to implement structures that are more solid for me to, I would say, to win the big prize, but the big prize is so open this season that maybe whatever they do is good enough because they have match winners and match changes. But yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything to add to this sort of this thought exercise before we maybe do a little European wrap?
No, not really. Like, I think we've sort of touched on it in the past where we think the next stage.
The World Cup was big for it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Where you were talking about, what was it, metas?
Yeah, the meta.
Yeah, the meta.
Yeah. And we saw it, every team had a different style. especially like Morocco had like one of its most distinctive styles where they were like high intensity, high press, lots of running, but the thing is, you can't sustain that style for an entire season. That's more of a tournament style.
Yeah, and I guess City and Liverpool in recent seasons have been pushing the boundaries, but what you definitely can't do, even if you can for a whole season, I think what we're seeing is you can't do it season after season. City are the only ones I can remember in recent times who, but to be fair, even when they went that Centurion season, they were playing in that intense style, but by the 2/3 mark of the season, they had no actual contender pressure from anyone else. So the only pressure they were putting on themselves was how good can we possibly be? And then the next season they actually had a challenger who was pushing them. So I guess that kind of could explain why it happened there. But apart from that, we saw Liverpool. Well, Liverpool did it as well because they challenged for the title. That's that 18-19 season, and then they went on and got 99 points themselves the next season. So they're the only two teams who have been able to do that back-to-back seasons. But the season that Liverpool won the title, City were nowhere near it. And then the next season, City come back and Liverpool are nowhere near it. So it's definitely not playing at that intensity cannot be sustained for season after season. And yeah, I agree with that. But we have seen it be for a whole season.
Yeah, but maybe club football is slightly different because you're obviously working with the players every day. You can probably rotate a little bit better as well because you can bring in academy, like players from the academy and stuff. So it's not like a set 23-man or 26-man squad. Like it can be like a 30 or a 35-man squad if you include some under 18s players and whatnot. So I guess you can refresh and liven up the team to help sustain that play for the entire season. But yeah, is there anything to add before we... Do you want to do anything from Europe, or did you want to move to the UCL?
We'll do a little Europe roundup. I'll try and make it quick, but I was in the middle of the Bundesliga one where we have three teams locked at the top. Like I said, Union couldn't put away Schalke, who were bottom of the table, and for them, I think the thing we got to remember with Union Berlin, and you brought it up, talking about their tie with Ajax, they are in the Europa League and they're in the knockout stages of the Europa League, and this isn't like a Leicester City story out of nowhere. This team has been progressing season after season. I think they were 7th 2 seasons ago and 5th last season, and now they're progressing even beyond that this season. We'll see how it all shapes out because there is still a chance that they finish 6th or 5th in this Bundesliga because those three are tied up the top, and then you have, I think it's Freiburg, Fraudberg, who we've called them, unfortunately, because they're back. They're only 3 points off in fourth and on 40 points. And then I believe you have Leipzig on 39 and Eintracht on 38. So you've still got 6 teams right in the thick of it. The Bundesliga is fascinating this season.
Although they only have 13 games left, not 17, because they have a 34-game season.
Yep, of course. So, yeah, 3 teams tied at the top. Unbelievable. Was there any real great football to talk about from the Bundesliga? No, not really. I didn't get to watch Leipzig beat Wolfsburg because they weren't televising it, unfortunately. Dortmund, I don't know, still. Dortmund, they're an interesting one. Where I think, and on your Fulham point before, João Paulinho, I think, is a player who big clubs in Europe should be looking at because I think he's one of... This season on form, he's one of the best defensive midfielders in Europe from what I've seen. Admittedly, I don't watch Fulham as much as I watch all those other teams, but every time I've seen Fulham, he's the one who catches my eye straight away, as well as obviously Mitrovic. But yeah, I'm never convinced by Dortmund's midfield, their defense, Schlotterbeck. Maybe him and Sula could be all right, but I think an upgrade for where Ozcan plays is where they need one, because Dortmund are playing this sort of hybrid system where it's sort of a 4-4-2 against the ball, or a 4-2-3-1 against the ball, and then it changes when Emre Can drops in between the centre backs and it goes to again a 3-1-6 basically, but the fullbacks are much more defensively minded in this system. So Marius Wolf and Rayson start on the weekend. Neither of them, technically, these guys are some of the worst footballers you see, but to the point, they're these players who play this role, who sort of like balance out the team a little bit more. So, but admittedly, they're playing an awful Hertha Berlin side this weekend. So they win 4-1 at home. Eintracht won 2-0, average again, but my boy Randall Colomwani scores again. He's in double digits for goals and assists in the Bundesliga. He's an unbelievable talent. One that I think should be highly sought out after across Europe, because if I think about it, he'd slot into Manchester United so easily. Because I was talking about how the diamond is so fluid. Randall Colomwani himself as a player is so fluid. He can lead the line, he can play out wide. He just fills in whatever role is needed from the attacking lineup. He presses, he works hard for the team. And obviously being in double digits in goals and assists in the league shows you he's multifaceted in his game. So I think in terms of strikers who are maybe the most available across Europe for a decent price, although this run of form will push his price very high, but he has been fantastic. I think big clubs should be probably looking at him. Although he might stay at Eintracht, because Eintracht are a good team themselves, but right now they're outside of Champions League spots. So the Bundesliga, the way it shapes up, will be fascinating for the rest of the season. Serie A was bang average. No, I'll finish on the best game of the weekend, but yes, Serie A this weekend was bang average. Napoli, though, if you get a chance to watch the Kvaratskhelia first goal against Sassuolo from the Friday night, he picks the ball up halfway line, drives it through, I think 2 or 3 challenges, and then gets his finish in near posts. I'd say it's unbelievable, but it's very believable because that's how good Varadona has been this season. He's been unbelievable. They might put his statue outside of the actual Maradona at this rate. But
if they win the Champions League.
If they win the Champions League, because they're going to win Serie A, there's no doubt about that. Such a good team to watch. They weren't great to watch in this game, but they have so much individual quality, because when you look at the score sheet and you look at the fact that Kvaratskhelia scores and Osimhen scores, it's like, well, it's easy to see why they won this game. They're not at their free-flowing best, but they got 2 players who can make the difference. So that'll be enough to carry them through to the end of the season, even if they don't play their free-flowing best. Milan, maybe there's signs that Milan are riding the ship. It looks like, if you use the analogy, it looks like maybe they've at least plugged the holes, because they're able to win 1-0 again, away at Monza this time. So they've at least plugged the holes in the ship. They still have a lot of water on the ship. That ship still looks like it's lugging along. It doesn't look free-flowing best. But if week by week they could get a little bit more water off that ship, they can start to move a bit more freely. Theo Hernandez is looking like he at least has moments now where he can make the difference. Obviously, he did in the Champions League against Tottenham. Again, he was linking up with Leao very nicely in moments. Not enough, though, not consistently enough for Milan to look like a good team. But, they win 1-0, they keep another clean sheet, so there's signs there that they're coming back to something. Inter are able to beat Udinese at home in a tough challenge. Lautaro Martinez, I must say, I think I was naming my 3 best strikers in the world. I forgot to put this guy at least on the short list. I don't know if he makes it. I think, at least on reputation, he probably makes it past Colomwani in there with Harry Kane and Victor Osimhen, although maybe Rashford might be an out-and-out striker now, so you can put him on that list. And
well, you're not putting... Haaland's not there anymore for you?
Not on form. Not post-World Cup. I haven't been impressed with what I've seen from him. And you couple that with the fact those 2 chances he missed against Forest were terrible. And that's to put him 2-0 up and they win that game. So, look, overall on reputation, Haaland would still be above a fair few of those guys, like Colomwani for sure, still above Rashford, still probably above Lautaro. But in recent weeks, on that form, no, and Lautaro has been sensational since the World Cup as well. So he scores another goal, even though he started on the bench. But yeah, Inter were uninspiring in this game. They sort of scored in that classical way we've seen in recent weeks, where a team misses a good chance from a corner and then they went on and counter-attacked to... I think that was the go-ahead goal. It might have been the first goal. Lazio were able to win. Ciro Immobile is back on the score sheet. He scores 2 against Salernitana away. One thing just to flag for Lazio, the Romagnoli injury. I don't know how long he's out for, but I'm not filled with confidence with his replacement Patrick starting at centre-back in those games. I like the Casale-Romagnoli partnership at the back. I thought that looked pretty solid. If it's Casale and Patrick for an extended period, then I'll probably move off that Lazio as the second best team in Italy pick. Especially with it, Inter still are uninspiring though. I don't know about Inter. Juve might have a claim for that, but obviously, if teams keep faltering for this race for Champions League like Atalanta did, I didn't get a chance to watch their game, but they lost away at Lecce, or I think at home to Lecce, maybe even. So yeah, that's a bad loss for them. But yeah, Juve maybe could get themselves back in there, but obviously the Europa League becomes vitally important for Juve if they want to sort of maybe put a stamp on saying we're still one of the best in Italy. They might need to go on and at least go deep in that, if not win the whole thing. And I think they're settled enough that they give themselves a chance. I like them now that they're settled in a 5-3-2. All they do is move pieces in and out as they see fit. They were very uninspired. I think that's the theme of Serie A. They were uninspiring themselves, but they were able to win 2-0 on the weekend. Di Maria scored another goal. He's been very good post-World Cup. So, but they have it on because they have to go away to Nantes, and they only drew, I think, 0-0 at home. So they still have a tie on their hands. I think we hit all of Italy. I don't think there was anyone I was missing out off that list. Roma.
That Juve one is interesting.
Whether they can get back into the race for fourth.
Yeah, because like they're on 32 points, and like they're like considering how strong of a team on paper at least it is.
They've got Vlahovic back in recent weeks as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't put it past them. So like, there's 15 games left. That's 45 points, right? 45 points to play for. If they can pick up 10 wins.
Hopefully they can, I don't know, maybe not hopefully for the rest of the teams, but hopefully they can win an appeal against that 15-point deduction as well.
Yeah.
Because without that, they would be this equal with Inter, wouldn't they?
Yeah. But if they can pick up 10 wins out of those 15 games left to play.
What's sixth place on? I think it's Atalanta now.
41.
How many points are they on? 41. So
yeah,
9 points only.
Yeah.
If they can make that up, they get themselves back in the hunt. My instinct says it's still too much for them to overcome, but because I still,
you know what it reminds?
Yeah,
it reminds me. It's similar to Liverpool. How like, you know, two weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, they were like 9 points or 10 points off top four, and now like because they have 2 games in hand. I know Juve don't have any games in hand, but like it's similar. It feels similar at least. Like because Juve is a massive club. Yeah. So,
yeah, that'll be interesting, actually. I wrote it off after they lost at home to Empoli and after the points deduction. I might have a bit of egg on my face for that one, but let's see. That'll be interesting if they can throw themselves into the mix. That will be fascinating. But I still think they're going to have to play a little bit better than they have been showing because, again, they still haven't been great. I think that just leaves La Liga now. And Liga, and I won't do a full Liga wrap, but we do need to talk about the PSG game, which was remarkable. In La Liga, Real somehow get another win. I don't know what to make of Real, and that'll be interesting when we do our Champions League preview. I don't know what to make of them in recent weeks because they've had so many fixtures, they've had to shuffle the deck so much. But the good news is they're still able to win this game, and it's no surprise that without Benzema, Vini was the most important player. And they're there's an argument to be had that Vinny is just Real Madrid's most important player now, because Benzema is just so in and out of the team this season that yes, he is still the reigning Ballon d'Or player, and yes, when he's on the football pitch, he might still be the best in the world, but his availability is not something to hang your hat on this season. So there might be an argument that Vinny now might just be Real Madrid's most important player, and he's been a little bit wasteful in recent weeks. I really hope he hasn't been saving all his goals for midweek. That would be terrible. But he's a difference maker week in, week out. He's back to that Vinny at the start of the season, apart from the goals, where he's just putting pressure on your defense constantly, and it's no surprise that he gets the stick that he does. It's disappointing that the stick can sometimes be racially driven in Spain. I guess maybe that's no surprise. But for me, I think the tactics, particularly I think it was Mallorca the other week where they lost the game, the tactics of the players and sort of to get in his face and rile him up, I think can only be seen as a compliment to how good the Vinny is and how good that opposition think that Vinny is. And for us, he made our list of players you'd start your franchise with, if you want to use an NBA term, because he is that good and he is still that young. And I'm somewhat hoping in the coming seasons that it's harsh of me to hope this because it takes somewhat the purity of him out. But I hope that he lowers that mask himself. If he continues to get this level of stick, then I hope that he just gets this laser focus to destroy everyone in his path, because I think he's good enough. I think if he takes that approach, he could be a future Ballon d'Or winner, maybe multiple Ballon d'Or winner, because I think this guy is that good. And the thing that I always say that I love about him so much is the improvement that he shows season after season. He continues to develop. He never has a Marcus Rashford sort of stall in him. After season, he's just getting better. Now, admittedly, his situation might be a bit better than Marcus Rashford's had, but he's just been fantastic. He like I say, has an argument to be Real's best player, or most important player. Barca win again. Surprise, surprise. Don't concede a goal at home again. Surprise, surprise. And I'm interested to get your take just quickly on Barca. Do you think that this is Barca's new identity, to just be a solid team who defends? I don't know. It's hard to say well, but if they go on to win La Liga, it's going to be built on their defense, and that's not something you would associate with a Barcelona team, and maybe wrongly so in the past, and maybe Xavi as well. You wouldn't have thought he'd be this type of manager coming in, but I think he's shown a real sort of pragmatism that I've somewhat admired for a manager of good players.
Well, do you think that it's also the fact that, you know, that whole notion like great teams are built on great defenses, and like if you want to, and if you're rebuilding a team, then you always start from the back. So if this is Xavi's, I guess, long-term plan, you need to make yourself solid at the back first. That's generally like what Pep has done. Like when he first came in at City, didn't he get like a whole new backline? That was the first thing that he that he addressed.
Yeah, not the first thing, because he had to go through that season of realizing that it wasn't good enough. But yeah.
And then also with I think Klopp did it as well at Liverpool. So yeah, like he and that was an aging backline, and it sort of is because he brought in Alonso and Christensen. So that's sort of aging, but then Araujo's.
They also brought, Araujo's
he's
young. Koundé's early 20s as well.
But Balde as well is young.
And Balde, who's having a decent season.
But like
Piqué
is out. Busquets, he's probably going to retire soon. But he's not part of the defense itself, but he's part of that. He's part of the back five.
The unit.
Yeah, he's part of the unit. So yeah, I guess maybe he's using this season to build it, and then to transition it for the next years to come. And then, because from what I've noticed when I've watched them in like the Champions League, Europa League, and any other games that I've watched, I'm like, they don't seem that fluid and dynamic and lethal up front. And that comes later. So
Yeah, I agree with that. But one thing I will say on that point is another nod, and I blow very hot and cold with the Xavi, as you could probably tell. But I'll tip my cap to him for this because playing in that style where you are solid defensively um, has meant that you are bringing out the best in Robert Lewandowski. Because if you can keep a clean sheet, if you could go into games and know that we're not going to, at worst, we're going to concede one goal in this game. We're not going to concede more than one goal, except for when they come up against big teams, I must add. But in all the other league games, they know going into the game, we're not going to concede more than one goal. So if we do that, we know that we have Robert Lewandowski. If we give him one or two chances where he's scoring one or two goals, and we're winning this game, and that's all it takes in so many of these games this season. And he scores again on the weekend after Sergio Roberto made it 1-0. So yeah, this identity is not one I would have associated, but I think it's quite intelligent from Xavi. And to your point, I think it's a good one to start with the defense, and it's reaping its rewards this season. So fair play to them as well. Just below them, those two, Sociedad slip up a last minute own goal at home to Celta Vigo, who are somewhat rejuvenated under Carlos Carvajal, who's come in there. And you know, one player to watch out for there is Kubo up front. I think he's having. If I put his season on par with other players from around Europe, I'd sort of compare him to an Ademola Lookman from Atalanta and a Miguel Almiron at Newcastle. I'm interested to see with all three of them whether these are just flash in the pan seasons or whether they continue to progress and continue to get better, because that'll be an interesting watch in coming seasons. And another player who sort of did this was last season at Betis, and this is a perfect transition. Juanmi, who got on the score sheet early in this game. If you haven't seen it, look at the Sergio Canales pass. I think in the first minute of this game for Betis, I think at home against Valladolid, who I think they go on to win this game 2-1. But yeah, Juanmi, who scores that opening goal. Last season, I think he scored 16 goals for Betis in the league, and this season he's only on 3. So when I talk about Betis having a goal-scoring problem, I think you look right there and you look at his deficiency of goals and the way he sort of went off the boil after having a very good season last season. Fortunately for Betis, Borja Iglesias has somewhat picked up the slack this season, although he was out injured for this game. But yeah, that's what's... So him and Sergio Canales being so good, sort of keeping this team in the race for the top 4. But my favourites to come out are still probably Sociedad, with the advantage that they've built up and the fact that when you look at it, Sociedad haven't actually had a settled team all season. So if they could get all their players right and ready to play, then you can only imagine that they'll probably be even better. And Atletico Madrid, who were able to get an important 1-0 win at home against Bilbao. Obviously, it's 1-0. But the thing, and why I bought Atletico stock was... They're settled. They're kind of like Juve, if I had to compare them. They're settled in what they do now. It's always 4 at the back. It might vary a little bit in front of it, but it's always 4 at the back now. It's more running. They're running a lot more. They're not sitting in a low block. They're defending, yes, but they are running. And they're looking to press. They're looking to play with a bit more energy. And I just like the way they've looked, especially since Griezmann's been allowed to play, because he pops up with the goal in this game. It's a fantastic goal where he's able to play a sort of 1-2 with Memphis Depay. If Memphis Depay could come in and have an impact with this team, I don't think I'm exaggerating to say I would put them in the same class as Real Madrid and Barcelona in terms of the way they play. It's just unfortunate for them. They're starting way too far back to make any impact on those teams. But if they could be settled, finish the season strong, finish 3rd place, overtake Sociedad, I think then Simeone would have done enough to keep his job. That obviously isn't good news for João Felix, but that's probably good news for Chelsea, getting him a little bit cheaper. But yeah, I expect Atletico to finish in that top 4. And another shout-out, I know I've given him shout-outs this season, but Reynaldo, for me, needs another big shout-out because he is so important to that defense in terms of Atletico, like we said with the Guardiola question, they have to play a somewhat weaker defender next to Jimenez. And just putting Jimenez one side and then Reinildo the other side of Hermoso this weekend. Hermoso makes a few mistakes, but Reinildo's always there to cover. And I think he's a fantastic defensive left back / left centre back. I think a lot of... I can think of one team in Manchester City who could do with a good left back, to be quite honest. I've suggested Newcastle as well. I think he'd be a good signing for any of those teams. But hopefully he stays at Atletico because Atletico are doing well. Bilbao, on the flip side, I must say they might be out of the race for top four now. They're 9 points behind Atletico with that loss. But I was impressed with the shape that they were playing. They played a sort of a diamond where Nico Williams and Iñaki Williams were sort of up front but fluid, and then Oyan Sunset just played just behind them. So I like the look of that. Bilbao's problem is they normally, with a club like Bilbao, who are maybe out of the race for top four, this would be the point where I'd ask where to next for Bilbao. But you can't ask that question with the club's Basque policy. Because what signings are they going to make? I don't know. They have to be Basque. So I don't know. It's fortunate for them, but unfortunate in the same way. But having said that, they've never been relegated from La Liga.
That's crazy.
That policy is
crazy.
Working. Let's be honest.
And do they have that policy for the manager as well? Like the manager has to be Basque, or just the players?
No, because I think they broke it for Marcelo Bielsa.
Yeah, Bielsa.
Those years ago. And just finally, Villarreal are sinking like a submarine, a big yellow submarine. Because I believe I can't even remember their game now. That's how badly they. Oh yeah, that's right. They lost. Was it Mallorca? I don't know. Pepe Moreno makes an awful mistake at the start of this game, and they sort of never. And then they lose a man because Manu Trigueros is an idiot and just decides to punch someone or something. And yeah, they lose this game. So they're sinking out of top four race, which is good because it probably means I have to watch less football. But they still have good players who I'd probably want to watch and see what they do. So, yeah, that's the roundup before. I don't know. Did you watch this game, the PSG Lille game?
No, I didn't.
Ooh. Okay, PSG have, and I know this is somewhat premature, and we'll probably touch on it a little bit more in the preview to the Champions, the reverse fixtures of the Champions League. But one, PSG are a team of a bygone era. They don't play like City or Bayern in that style at all. They want to very much play a slow, methodical game. They want to possess the ball for a long time. And to be fair, this is why I'm always conflicted whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, what we're seeing in football in recent years. Because PSG look awful in doing this, to be fair to them. But
they don't have
kind of have to. And they don't have a defense at the moment either. They do on paper, but that defense is so leaky at the moment. I think Lille create good chances in this game. I think they go up twice, maybe 3 times in the game. But what PSG did have in this game was the front three were back. Mbappe, Neymar, Messi. And Neymar scores. Messi scores the winner with a free kick in the last minute. And Mbappe scores 2. And the point still remains after the Bayern tie. Mbappe is the best player in the world. And you can see his effect on this PSG game is exactly why he's the best player in the world. Because he comes in and all of a sudden PSG look like a threatening team. They look like a team who you need to absolutely worry about. Which is hard to say given that they had Messi and Neymar in the team before that, but I just didn't think they looked that threatening with those two because of the pace aspect.
Yeah.
And yeah, Mbappe
what pace?
Scores what pace, exactly. Like Neymar maybe in his heyday was quick, but I don't think he has that
Messi
energy
as well
to
was
run
quick.
anymore. Of course, Messi in terms of the agility, in terms of but you needed to play proactively with Messi, though, because you want him closer to goal. But he could press. I liked it when Messi used to press. That was fun to watch. But and unfortunately, Neymar gets injured in the game. And it did, to be fair, I know his sister's birthday is around the corner, but it did look like he rolled his ankle quite badly. So he might be injured for the return fixture, which will not be disastrous because Mbappe is obviously the one, but it won't be great because I sort of overlook while Mbappe is undoubtedly the most important player, Neymar might not be that far off because Neymar is the one out of the front three who at least still has the ability to run when they don't have the ball. Now, I'm not always enamored by the work that he does, but he at least tries to do the work. Whereas Messi and Mbappe just do not do any work against the ball. So, and maybe you can blame Mbappe a little bit more for that, and we've already asked that question. But look, Neymar, he has a footballing importance to PSG, but he needs to be switched on like he was before the World Cup. Maybe this is a moot point because of a moot point. I always say moot point because of that Friends episode where Joey says it. So I just wanted to clarify that. But yeah, maybe this is all a bit of a moot point because of he might be injured for the reverse fixture, and that's really the only game that matters to PSG if they don't get through that. Who's really going to care about what they do in the league? Not many. But they've given me a little bit of confidence because when you see Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe all up front, then they're capable of winning games like this against what I must say is a pretty good Lille team who are on the fringes of challenging for a Champions League place. This loss sort of sets them back a bit, but they are a solid team, a well-organised team with a few threats like Jonathan David up front. So yeah, when you have those three players, they could get you out of any situation, and we saw that, and this was the game of the weekend apart from Arsenal Villa. And yeah, so they've given me a reason to believe in them. If I see Neymar, Mbappe, Messi up front on the team sheet away at the Allianz, I won't completely write them out for that game. But Jesus, the midfield and the defense scare the shit out of me. You can't be shipping 3 goals at home to Lille. I don't care how good I've just talked about how Lille are. You can't be doing that. So I don't think Marquinhos played in this game. So that's the saving grace. But even he himself needs to get in better form for that return fixture, which gives us a good segue to probably talk about the Champions League now.
Yeah, let's get into the Champions League and wrap this puppy up.
Let's wrap it up.
'Cause we're almost at 2 hours already.
Yeah, sorry, but there was a lot of football, you know.
Yeah, I know. I guess the biggest fixture would be Liverpool versus Real Madrid, a replay of last year's final.
Is that the fixture you're looking forward to the most?
I think so, yeah. Let me just bring up the other ones, just to remind
You got
myself.
Eintracht, Napoli, Leipzig City, or Inter Porto?
Yeah, I think that's the most... that's the one that everyone has their eyes on.
And I think it became a bit more exciting given how Liverpool showed that they can still reach a level in that first 25 minutes at St James's Park, right?
Yeah, I think if Liverpool are hitting form, they're hitting it at the right time because, like, Jota's back, and like also, and that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about, and I guess now I can ask you about it since we're touching on it now. Has Darwin Núñez now found his place on the left wing with Gakpo going through the middle?
Yeah, it was interesting because Gakpo played really well, I thought, against Newcastle, and obviously gets that second goal. And Darwin, I was going to say tactically, I don't think Klopp loved it because I think there were a few images of him on the sideline maybe having a go a little bit at Darwin for tracking Trippier back too much, maybe even, which I kind of liked. But Darwin on the left-hand side is almost like a default left wing back because I think his simplicity in the way he plays says, if I play on the left wing, my job when we don't have the ball is to track their right back. So he keeps it very simple in that way. And I think it's almost to Liverpool's benefit because now we have an extra player helping out defensively, which can really help us at times because sometimes we are so open, obviously. So yeah, I think maybe Klopp sees more in Gakpo up front, more subtlety. And we always know that with Firmino as the example in the past, and Jota to an extent, he prefers a little bit more subtlety in the central position, where he needs someone, A, dropping in to pick up the ball, but B, who knows exactly how to press in that position. And obviously Gakpo's had his growing pains, and I still expect him to have his growing pains to learn how to do that effectively. But in this game, there's no doubt, particularly in that first 25 minutes, I thought Gakpo was one of the more influential players picking up the ball in between the lines, helping link up the play. And then obviously you've always got that option of Trent picking up the ball on the right in the right back position, and having a switch on to Nunez, or a switch or a through ball, and that's how they score their first goal. So yeah, I think maybe that's what Klopp's trying to do in terms of simplify the game for Darwin initially. I still would probably expect him to evolve into the number 9, but maybe it doesn't happen this season. So yeah, maybe his position for this season is the left winger.
Who do you drop then? Because Luis Diaz is coming. I think he's training with the team. I'm not sure if he's
Yeah.
training with the team or if he's training individually, but he's back to training at least. So who do you drop then? Gapco or Darwin?
I would not be surprised to see. Wow, this is an interesting one because we got the home leg first.
I'm not talking about this game. I'm talking about in general as well. Because like maybe
I don't know. In general, is a horses for courses for me. I think he'll rotate between the 5 because they're all very good options everywhere across that front 5. So I think in the future going forward, I think he'll rotate between them. But in terms of this challenge,
I don't think Diaz is going to be fit for this game. Maybe he'll be fit for the other.
Exactly.
Game.
He's not going to be ready for this challenge.
Yeah.
I doubt he'll even be ready for the return fixture. So. But Jota is fit because he did play on the weekend, and he came back and got some minutes. So that gives you a conundrum right there. Is Klopp maybe going to be worried about the emotional factor for Darwin? Perhaps. But then at the same time, I think he'll be worried about the tactical factor for Darwin in the away leg. So it would be a big call if Klopp wasn't to play Darwin, if he is fully fit, that is, of course. I don't know. I don't know how he's going to line up because we know he likes Jota. How much does he like Gakpo? That's the question. Could it be a Jota through the middle, Gakpo on the left sort of front lineup because he trusts that a little bit more? Or will he like the fact that Darwin scores on the weekend and try to keep him rolling through maybe a good run of form? So we're already starting to see the conundrums that having good options up front will pose. And Bobby got some minutes as well.
Yeah.
I personally would probably prefer it not to be Bobby from the start, but to the point of trust, he might trust Bobby the most. So that's got to be an interesting factor. And then obviously, I think we're all looking forward to seeing how Virgil van Dijk fares with Karim Benzema. Given that neither of those players, you would say, are fully fit at the moment. Karim Benzema doesn't play on the weekend and has been in and out of the side. And obviously, I must say, Van Dijk looked pretty good on the weekend for his first game back. Maybe one of his better performances all season. I'm not saying he was flawless, but he did make a big difference. So let's hope from a Liverpool's perspective that those 25 minutes against Newcastle turn into a longer spell, particularly at home. If we need to win this game, I think, is the bigger picture thing. But yeah, I think I agree with you. This is the most exciting fixture. Not just for the names, not just for the revenge aspect from last season, but now for the fact that Liverpool have proven to themselves they can play to a very high level again, because Newcastle are no walkovers. And for those first 25 minutes away at St. James's Park, they played a very good game. And Real Madrid, like I said, I don't know what to expect from Real Madrid because they haven't had a settled lineup ever since the World Cup. And that's understandable. I'm not placing blame on anyone, but I am saying this is a fact. So what do I expect from Real Madrid? I don't know. Is it back to Modric and Kroos in the midfield? Is Tchouaméni fit and ready to go? Or is it going to have to be Camavinga in there? If it's not Camavinga in there, does Camavinga play as left back? Who plays out on the right-hand side? Is it Asensio? Does Valverde get pushed out there because Kroos is playing? So yeah, there's question marks around Real Madrid, but I still think they come into the game in a better place than Liverpool.
Who do you think is the favourite overall? And also, do you think that playing the first leg at home at Anfield puts Liverpool at a disadvantage?
Oh, definitely. And that's why they do it, because we finished second in the group and Real finished top in the group. So that's why you always get your second leg at home. Along with just the disadvantage of, having a second leg and your home fans at home. Also, if the tie goes into extra time, you also get the added 30 minutes at home and a potential penalty shootout at home, which I think is the big advantage.
Especially now with no away goals.
exactly. Yeah. But, Anfield can blow anyone away. So I don't expect this Liverpool team to be good enough to do that. But, even back in the heyday, those teams under Benitez weren't sensational and they could blow teams away. We blew Real Madrid away in the 08-09 season. Not a vintage Real Madrid, it must be said, but still Real Madrid. And I would probably say this isn't a vintage Real Madrid, but maybe it's all been the plan that the players that Ancelotti has rested in ever since the World Cup have been rested for a reason. And now they're ready to put their strongest 11 out. And if there's one team in the world who you can trust to sort of come into a game like this without a run of games in the lead up to it, it's Real Madrid with all that experience. It's Toni Kroos and Luka Modric with all that experience. We still have question marks over the holding midfielder, whether it be Tchouaméni or someone else. We still somewhat have question marks over the centre-backs. Because I don't know, I think Militao has been in and out of the team as well, so I'm not sure if he's fully fit. If it's Rudiger, I mean, they're very good centre-backs, but Real Madrid without Casemiro is the big question mark, because Casemiro helped those centre-backs so much last season. And then at left-back, I don't think Mendy's been fit for a while now, so there's a question mark there as well. So, yes, there's question marks, but come on, it's very obvious where any Liverpool fan has absolute nightmares in this game in particular. I'm pretty sure you know exactly the matchup and the area of the pitch where we don't want to see our player exposed.
Yeah,
please.
Modric versus Henderson.
It's not a great one, but at least Hendo can run, so he can sort of make up for that.
But so can Modric, and the guy's like, what, 37? Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, I know which one you're talking about. Trent v Vinicius. And you know what? Going back to the Liverpool game, dude, St. Maximin, at least before you guys scored, I'm like, oh, Trent's not going to have a good evening. Because there was a couple of times, I think, from memory, that St. Maximin got the better of him 1v1. I'm like, oh... yeah, it's not going to be enjoyable. And then you guys got two pretty quick goals in succession.
And let's not forget Trent set up the first one as well.
Yeah, and now
so like it's your cancelling out, isn't it? So, we'll lose that, but we'll gain this.
Yeah, but now you got Vinny and the form that Trent has been on this season. At least last season he was still in good form, and like you're like, okay, yeah, I can trust him to an extent defensively, but now this season it's like I don't know if I can trust him like at all. So yeah, I think it's no bueno.
Yeah, I know, and that's one. Yeah, that's a matchup you could expect probably Vinny to win. But I think when we're talking this out and we're talking about everything else that goes into this tie, it's a very unpredictable tie for me. Because especially the first leg, you have the Anfield factor. You have Liverpool showing that they can be good again, but they haven't been consistently good in the lead-up. In fact, they've been consistently very bad before that Newcastle game. But now you've got that unpredictability. Well, they can play like that, so maybe they could do that. We've got the unpredictability of we don't know exactly who the personnel for Real Madrid will be in some key areas. So, yeah, all in all, this tie... I'd definitely make Real Madrid the favourites over two legs, but it's an unpredictable one that I can see going a variety of ways. To be fair, I wouldn't be shocked if Liverpool came out of this tie, because it would probably be a case of Liverpool rolling it back to last season kind of performances, and Anfield being a big factor as well. And that's enough to get you through any tie if you're Liverpool. Anfield really is. I know it's not second leg at home, but it's still such a fortress, such a special place on European nights. So unpredictable this tie. Quite exciting. Just quite nervous as well. Quite nerve-wracking as well.
I'm going to make a prediction.
Yeah, go
before we move on to the next one. So it's going to go one of two ways. So either Liverpool are going to blitz them in the first 15 minutes and they score 2 to 3 goals. Or...
a la the against Manchester City in 17-18. Yeah.
Or... they try to do that. Real Madrid sustain the blitz. And then over time, Real Madrid gets more and more control over the game. And then they nab 1 or 2 goals.
So you can see Real Madrid winning this tie?
Yeah.
I think that's my least likely outcome.
I can see them
not
winning.
the tie. This leg. Sorry, this leg.
Yeah.
At Anfield. I think that's the least.
I can see them winning it
I
because
see
I
it,
still
but I
don't
think
trust you guys defensively, and also I don't trust the consistency as well.
I'll put percentages on it. I'll go 35 for a win, 35 for a draw, and leaving. Oh no, I'll go 40 for a draw and leave 25 for the Real Madrid win. So yeah, I think it's all things are possible.
I don't know. I'm putting Real Madrid a little bit more ahead because if I see them lining up with Benzema, Valverde, and Vinny, I can see though your wings getting exposed and having a horrid time.
I could say that, especially the Vinny one.
Especially the Vinny one, yeah. Because this season, like at least last season, Trent was at least like confident defending. Yeah. This season, he doesn't even have confidence in his ability to defend. Whereas last season, it's like, look, I know, like, I'll try. This season, he's not even trying. So that's the worrying thing. Sometimes he's just like walking, and like not even tracking or anything like that. Whereas last season, at least he was tracking and trying. So yeah, I don't have, like I said, I can see it going one of two ways. Either the blitz or the blitz is sustained. If the blitz is sustained, I don't see you guys scoring as the game continues. I don't see you guys scoring.
Never doubt Anfield.
Yeah, unless.
Well, I'll say.
However, I'll just correct that. I can see you guys scoring within the first 5-10 minutes of the second half, or right at the death.
Yeah, they seem the most likely.
Just because of the Anfield factor, but if you guys don't score in those periods,
Let's let it play out.
Yeah.
What's your second? What are you looking forward to second most?
Man City. Leipzig seems like a good tie.
Yeah, man. I actually agree. Even though on the footballing aspect, I'd probably go Frankfurt, Napoli. But Leipzig City for the potential story that I think is quite plausible.
Which
City getting knocked out of the Champions League.
I hope they don't. I hope they don't, because that means that they were going to have full focus on the Premier League.
Yeah, I know. I know why you hope they don't.
Yeah, I'd rather they don't.
Yeah, but we've talked about their fault, or their perceived fault, ad nauseum in recent weeks, and I know I didn't get to watch them on the weekend, but I think Leipzig are a pretty settled team under Marco Rosa. The problem is I don't think Christopher Nkunku is back. I kind of want to check that one, actually.
But you know what else for this tie? This might also be a scouting opportunity for Pep.
What, for when he goes to Chelsea?
No, a scouting opportunity for when he goes to Leipzig, for him to potentially grab one of their most prized possessions.
Who, Nkunku?
No.
Oh, Guardiola.
Yes.
That is a good one.
Because I can see this being that sort of, like, especially if Guardiola impresses, I can see City trying to get him in the summer then. Whereas, like, otherwise, if he doesn't really, like, impress or stand out and he just, like, plays an okay game, then I can see City being like, we'll let this one go. Like, we'll try, but we're not going to battle hard. But, like, if he really impresses, they're going to battle for this one and be like one of two teams that are really going to try to, like, outbid each other. And I can see the other team being Real Madrid. I can't see you guys really going hard for him this summer.
Probably not if those two are in the mix as well.
Yeah.
But if they do get Guardiola, then their ability to play the style that Pep wants to play recently increases exponentially. But good news is I just checked it, because obviously I've said it. I didn't watch the game, but Nkunku did play against Wolfsburg in the weekend. And for me, If he is somewhat fit, then I give Leipzig every chance of coming out of this tie. If he wasn't fit, I gave them very little chance. But I'm not saying it's 50-50, but I'm saying it's maybe as high as 30%. If they play this tie 10 times, I could see Leipzig getting out 3 times. Maybe 35%, 3.5 times. Because I think they're more settled. I think they now have a difference maker back in the team. And I think if those... And they have, they have players who can make a difference in attacking areas, because Akuku can. Werner with his pace can worry you, especially if you're playing 3 out-and-out defenders. Szoboszlai is a bit in that Sergei Milinkovic-Savic mold as well. Very physical. Can make mistakes, but can impact goals. And then you might play a create. I don't know who they play up front, to be quite honest, but I think they got enough to cause City problems, especially the way City are playing at the moment. So this one is fascinating for the fact that I think City have a real chance of being knocked out if they don't play to the levels that we saw from them earlier this season. Then I give Leipzig every chance.
Yeah, I'm just looking at their recent form, and it's not too bad.
It got a little bit scratchy the last couple of weeks. And Wolfsburg, which is a good touch-up win for them. Actually.
Yeah. It's similar to Liverpool in that sense, where you're having poor results and then you win. I didn't see the game, so I'm not sure whether it was a really good, convincing win or where they really worked hard. For instance, Liverpool looked like they were to their similar best from last season. But yeah, they drew against is it Köln? Köln?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they lost to Union Berlin. So before that, so yeah, I'm not sure.
They have Dortmund on the horizon as well, which will be a fascinating game. But yeah, this one's fascinating in itself. The tie overall.
I can see what you're seeing though, with especially with City being average this season.
Yeah, watch them go and win 4-0 in the first leg, and we got nothing to talk about.
So yeah, the tie's over. But yeah, I can also see that result. Especially especially considering
with Haaland up front, with De Bruyne playing well. Yeah, definitely.
No, but also considering that they drew a game this weekend that they should have won, so you would expect the players to be pissed off and want to rectify it, and they'd be like, well, okay, we got Leipzig as a punching bag. Let's just go take all our anger out on them. You can see that,
maybe
from big teams, you can see that happening. So,
although they should have been more than motivated to beat Forest anyway, and while they should have won the game, they weren't swashbuckling. They weren't great against Forest. Yeah. But I'm guessing Eintracht Napoli is third.
Yeah.
I don't. I guess tactically, one thing I maybe want to flag is, will Glasner sort of bite the bullet and go to a 5-3-2? I know they have the first leg at home, so he probably won't change anything. But I think that if they bulk up that midfield a little bit more with a 5-3-2, they give themselves a better chance against Napoli, who are swashbuckling. But I have seen them struggle a little bit to create against a 5-3-2, which I think is one of the most solid defensive formations there is. So, and I think Eintracht more than have the capabilities to do that. It'll just be interesting to see whether they do that. If they don't do that, then I worry about them getting outnumbered in the midfield, and Zielinski and Anguissa, or Elmas, Anguissa and Lobotka all start having a big influence on the game and controlling it for Napoli. I think it'll be a good matchup because Frankfurt are playing quite well. I know they had a blip 2 weeks ago, but they won again on the weekend. Obviously, it's a great matchup for the two strikers who are on show, who are all both in fantastic form. But I must say, I trust, even though I don't like Rachmani, I think he's the weakest link in the whole Napoli team. But I do trust Kim Min-jae's ability to marshal Kolo Muani better than I trust any one of the Eintracht defenders to marshal Victor Osimhen. And ultimately, I think that's where this tie is going to be decided. I think Victor Osimhen is going to be too much for that quite shaky back three of Eintracht to handle. and I think Napoli will get through.
I hope they get through.
I hope they get through as well.
'Cause-
Although it's unfortunate for Frankfurt because on form they are one of the better teams left in the competition.
Yeah, but I still think that remember how we were saying like the dream tie, at least before the World Cup would have been City Napoli. I still want to see that, like, because I can see. I think Napoli would actually be the favourites going into that tie.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah,
I agree.
and the last one.
And Inter Porto, my only worry for Inter is, I've said this in recent times a lot, they are a big game team. And so this tie might not be the best tie for them in that sense, because Porto is one of the smaller. I mean, I don't mean to disrespect Porto, but in terms of Champions League, it is that. But I still think that Inter will have too much. I haven't been convinced by Porto. They came through a dreadful group that had Atletico finishing bottom, which is unfortunate because I think if Atletico were still in the competition, they'd offer more than definitely Bruges and probably still offer more than Porto. But I have been hearing Porto are in good form domestically of recent times, so they'll be coming in confident, you've got to expect. But Inter,
Caleb, I've lost your video. Like, it's like frozen, but like, but I can hear
frozen.
you. But I can. But
okay,
we
as
can
long as you can hear me.
Yeah. All right.
As long as you can hear me. But I think probably ultimately the guy I think will make the difference much in the Napoli against Eintracht sense will probably be Lautaro because he is the main guy for Inter at the moment, and I expect him to be the main guy probably over this tie and do enough to help Inter through. But Inter are so inconsistent, I don't say it with that much confidence.
But you still think they'll go through. Do you think they'll win this first tie? Is this first tie, then it's at Porto, isn't it?
No, it's at Inter, I believe, because Inter finished second in their group. I had it up before. Oh, I've lost.
Yeah, it's at Inter.
But
Yep. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I expect Inter to win the home tie for I would say for sure, but
they
again,
should.
Inconsistent Inter.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like, we'd expect them to win the home tie. So, who are your picks then? Do you think Liverpool win or Liverpool draw or Real Madrid?
We talk about just these games, or
just these games for tonight and tomorrow.
I think Liverpool win at Anfield. I think.
You don't need to give a scoreline if you don't.
Yeah, I won't give a score. I'll still stick to Napoli win away at Eintracht.
Yeah,
I think it'll be close if
I
they
can
do.
agree with that.
I wouldn't be surprised by a draw though. I think Inter win at home against Porto, and I think Leipzig win by a goal at home.
I was gonna say that as well.
They're my picks.
I can see Leipzig winning this one.
Let's see if it happens, and then we can have a stick hung on us if it doesn't.
Let's see if it happens. Just quickly before we go, is there anything to add onto the Europa League tie with Man United and Barca, or not really? Or are we just going to talk about that once it happens because we sort of already discussed that on enough?
Yeah, not much to add. I just think obviously they're missing Pedri and Gavi for this upcoming second leg at Old Trafford, and they don't take an advantage there. I just see it being too much of a mountain to climb for Barca, and I see Man United getting through that tie.
Okay, well, let's see what happens. And yeah, guys, thanks for sticking around for almost 2.5 hours.
And I'm back.
Yeah, you're back right for the end. Make sure you like, subscribe, share the video, all that good stuff. Comment below as well whether you agree or disagree with what Kayla and I said. Let's start one of those keyboard fights. But yeah, guys, thanks for coming and bye for now.